fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got rid of the outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson! Anderson's up top!
Oh my god! Oh! Big crash! Oh my goodness, half the field's gonna get rolled!
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly.
Oh, here we go!
Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god!
God, what?
Welcome one, welcome all to a SimSpeed TV presentation on the iRacing Esports Network. It's the international division of the Majors Series once again, and we're racing in beautiful Watkins, Glen in upstate New York for the 1968 United States Grand Prix. We got a potential 23-car grid here in the international region, driving the Lotus 49 around Watkins Glen's classic layout for 108 laps. It's going to be a difficult one out there for the drivers. A classic circuit, a classic car, no wings, no slick tyres, but still about 400 horsepower under the right foot. My name's Reese Gardner. Joining me once again in the commentary box, Ryan Jones. Well, Ryan, now we go back old school. I remember last season we did the Tony Bettenhausen 200 Lotus 49 at the Milwaukee Mile, but now we go back to this classic American road racing venue.
Yep, recreating the Grand Prix of the United States back in 1968, back when Director J was sipping his first beer as a young adult. And this is where you'll find it as well, located in the New York State, not too far away from New York itself. Watkins Glen is a pretty iconic circuit now, isn't it, in motor racing circles? And we're using today one of my favourite versions. It doesn't include the boot, which is the longer layout of Watkins Glen. It doesn't include the bus stop either, though. So there's one gigantic straight from the S's to the outer loop, or the carousel, depending on what you want to call it. It's just 7 corners long. Overtaking, though, it should be pretty viable, given that long back straight and how easy it is to get a run out of that last corner down the main straight.
Yes, indeed, and the lack of aerodynamic grip that these cars have means you can follow them very closely through the corners, and you can actually fire one up the inside on the brakes into a couple of these corners where you might not be able to in more modern race cars. I'm definitely looking forward to this one. This charity that we're supporting this round is Metaviva, funding research into metastatic breast cancer, volunteer-led non-profit, and helping out survivors of metastatic breast cancer in the United States. Thank you very much for your support, guys, and we really appreciate all of these charities being featured as part of the Majors series, giving something back to the community. Here's the Pro Championship standings, meanwhile. Cameron Dance was the championship leader, but he had a horrific round last time out at Lucas Oil Raceway in the Silver Crown. That means he slipped to second place in the championship behind Will Leslie, who did very well in the last round. Dwayne Burns creeping up there into the top 3 as well. But it looks like in the Pro Championship it's a 2-horse race between Leslie and Dance with only a few rounds to go.
It certainly looks that way, and horrific is one way to describe Dance's round. Last time out, it was absolutely terrible, and he will be hoping, above all else, just to bounce back from that today and at least stay in touch with Will Leslie. Over in the Sportsman Championship, it's pretty close as well. In fact, it's closer. Stephen Williams only has 66 points in hand over Gavin Barber, but much like Pro, it's seeming like a 2-horse race at this point, with Phil Otto 242 points back, Martin Houston 308 back, and everyone else even further adrift from 5th on back.
Yes, indeed. It looks like, obviously drivers dip in and out of the championship over the course of the season, so that's the reason why some of the gaps are so big. For the Legends Championship, Harold Stadler and Daniel Stevens, another 2-horse race that's been going on for a couple of rounds now. Stevens falling behind Stadler in this championship for drivers over the age of 50. John King has fallen back on Wayne Taylor, who's had a couple of good rounds in the past, and Gavin Barber there rounding out the top 5. But as in the previous couple of rounds, it is between Stevens and Stadler. I'm going to move on over to the Teams Championship standings, and the first, of course, is the Elite Team Championship. And Kinetic, well, I mean, there's really not much more to say. They have set the standard for team representation in the majors, and they hold a dominant lead still over MF Racing Pro. That gap is going to be hard to make up in the last couple of rounds.
It will. Very, very hard, especially when you've got so many drivers out there who can get points for you. You know, Kinetic and MF Racing are both powerhouses here in the international division. Over in the other teams championship points table, we've got our sportsman teams, or rather our premier teams. And, well, I think this one is probably settled at this point. Reeks a 1,300 point buffer for MF Racing Sports over MF Racing Casual.
Yes, indeed. I don't think there's going to be much change in that over the last couple of rounds of the season either. MF Racing, of course, one of the powerhouse teams in the sportsman category. So awesome to see that they've got that in hand coming into the last quarter of this season, and a nice view of the Watkins Glen circuit as we're now into qualifying. We got a bit of an interesting format here. The drivers all have 20 minutes to set their best time, Now, they may pit normally for fuel or tyres, but they can't tow or escape back to the pits. Otherwise, they won't be able to re-enter the track. So you can go out there and do your run, but you have to come in, get a new set of rubber, new tank of fuel, and get out there yourself.
So you can't tow back to the pits, you say?
I say you cannot tow back to the pits.
Well, Cameron Dance
Has towed back to the pits?
Is going to have to limp that thing back home. It is crabbing down the main straight. How did he end up flipping, though? I looked away for half a second, and suddenly he was flying through the air. So over the top of the S's, as he grabbed the curb on the inside, he must have. No, on the outside, as he just feathered the left side onto the grass, and it flicked it hard into the Armco. And the car is, well, it's making its way back to the pit lane, awkwardly. I want to admire as well, in our championship fight, how all three of our drivers' standings have less than 100 points between the top two. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think so too. We're in for a good conclusion to this championship if those gaps stay the same. Meanwhile, we check in on provisional pole. Harold Stadler, he has set a 106.4 for his first flying lap. Daniel Stevens pressuring him though, putting in a time 4/10 down as we see Dwayne Burns come up to the end of his lap. See what he can do. Third place in the Pro Championship standings, a 109.687. That's not quite a representative time there for Dwayne. You want to be running about 3 seconds faster than that.
You see through the last corner, danced off on the edge of the shot, struggling his way through the grass and the gravel. His steering is 90 degrees to the left, trying to drive it down the straight at pit road. He finally makes it to his bay and he'll get his spare car out. Here comes Dean Mole then, charging to the line to set his first time of the session, and it's a 107.571. That slots him into 8th. So everyone except for Cameron Dance has now put a time on the board, and it is just a 1/10 of a second between Leslie and Stadler.
Yeah, well, I would like to have seen Cam on his little adventure, but my production feed is a slideshow at the moment. I'm working on fixing that. We're coming up to last couple of drivers out of the final corner. John King not setting a representative time. Jake Fox neither. Dwayne Burns' second lap is coming in, and that's more like it. A 107.1. That puts him into P4 as we take a look at Wayne Taylor and Dean Mole.
107.1 from both Dwayne Burns and King. Burns just fractionally quicker. With that slider issue you've got, take a leaf out of my book. Just blame it on Jay.
Yeah, all right. I'll blame it on Jay. My refresh button is being pressed with a great deal of dissatisfaction right now. But we've got a qualifying session still on here for Dean Mole. Let's see if he can improve. 107.5, 107.3 he improves to, but that is not going to translate into an improvement on position, unfortunately. Still about 100th behind Wayne Taylor.
It won't. Now, this being open setup, they can chuck minimal fuel in that car. We're expecting in the race lap times to get quicker and quicker because allegedly tyre life isn't too much of a factor in these old Lotus 49s. But in qualifying, I would say they're only going to get so many laps out of their cars, not because of the tyres, but because of the fuel. You'd imagine they'd be starting them pretty low in terms of the litres in the tank.
Yes, indeed.
They'll have to make a couple of trips to pit road. Maybe just one trip to pit road over the course of the session. There's a Texent Spitstye machine of Cameron Dance back out on the track and has made it further than the S's this time. He's about to finish what should be his first flying lap. That car in front is Harold Stadler, and that is far from optimal. Bit of understeer, which actually then progressed into oversteer at the very end of the corner.
Yeah, that's the handling characteristic of these 1960s F1 cars as Dance crosses the line to set a 106.458. That's not bad, despite the mistake that he made.
I reckon.
Yeah, he's definitely got a chance of a run at pole here, but you can see through these really long corners at Watkins Glen the wayward handling characteristics of these cars. This is about a year before motor racing engineers discovered that wings are a big advantage. So the way this car handles through the corners, it's very long. It's got the engine in the back, so if you tip it in a little bit too hard, then that rear is just going to come round I just saw Cam Dance do that as Dwayne Burns crosses the line again to set a time that's a bit slower than his fastest. Jake Fox through the last couple of corners. It's very difficult to get the power down out of there.
What year was it when engineers discovered that actually covering the engine up might give you a little bit more reliability out of your car?
From memory, you started seeing full-on engine covers probably near the end of the 1980s, the mid to late 80s. Before that point, you still had the headers exposed on the engine. Will Leslie has gone to pole meanwhile. Harold Stadler, we'll see if he can repeat that. No, he does not. But Will Leslie jumping onto the pole position, 106.325. That's going to be good for him. Got a car stopped up in the S's meanwhile. Looks like Cameron Dance has had another off. He's got some damage on his nose cone.
That he does. Little scrape down the front end of it. Hard to tell. Camouflage a bit actually by his paint scheme. I wonder if we can pick it up if I go back. Yeah. Ooh, bizarre. Car did not turn through the first part of the S's. Went straight across that grass on the inside. Actually managed to keep it off the Armco, but he's looking fast, but maybe not comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was Mario Andretti that said if the car feels like it's in control, then you're not going fast enough. And Mario Andretti comes from the time that these cars raced in Formula One, at least the late 60s to the 70s. That was the period where the cars were very wayward. John King across the line, 107.174. That's an improvement for him, but he remains in 6th.
I wonder if we could get Mario Andretti into one of these cars in iRacing.
Yeah.
Andretti Autosport, they're part of esports now, part of iRacing. They'll be running in the iRacing Rallycross World Championship starting at 3:45 a.m. tomorrow morning for us Aussies. So, hey, maybe there's an avenue there.
Yeah, perhaps. Mario does get on the sim every now and then in iRacing. And of course, the final prize for the Major Series title is the Mario Andretti Trophy. It celebrates the fact that Mr. Andretti was one of the most versatile race car drivers in history. He was able to put his foot to the floor and go fast in just about any car. He's done well at the Indy 500. He's got a Formula One championship under his belt. He's got magnificent records in US open wheel racing as well. So we're currently following Dwayne Burns and just coming into the pits for him. Let's have a look at Jake Fox then, coming into the penultimate corner. Fox is currently the last on times out of the 10 drivers in this session. Slightly wide through the last corner, but that's not going to damage his lap time massively. Across the line he goes to set a 107.861. That's not faster than his current time. So Jake Fox, with the session now past its halfway point, is going to have to find a few more tenths some other way.
Will Leslie, currently fastest, and now trying to go faster. At the moment, he's got a tenth and a half in hand, and he's going to come to pit lane and have another crack with some fresh tyres and a bit more fuel in the car. John King in 8th, he will continue and come across the line here, try to improve at 107.1. He doesn't, as a 107.2. They're not far away. Pretty tight between 1st and 8th, just 9 tenths of a second covering them, or just 7 tenths of a second from 2nd to 8th. Fraser Ross is half a second down on King, sitting in 9th with a 107.6, and then Jake Fox just behind him with a 107.7. These are the fastest 10 drivers from the, what is it, pre-qualifying sessions, you'd call it, over the course of the week?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, pre-qualifying in the majors takes place over the week preceding the race, and then we got this shootout here for the top 10 drivers, and then we'll jump on into the race session. Fraser Ross has begun a new lap, or it might be an in lap, not too sure. And the drivers out on track, it looks like Cameron Dance is making his way through the S's on a bit of a blinder. Jumps over the curb, and let's see if he catches the grass. No, not this time.
Didn't catch the apex either. Cameron Dance there. Getting it slowed up into the carousel is a tricky thing, because you want to carry as much speed into it and through the corner as possible. You also want to have a good exit. Those two things don't generally go hand in hand, because generally to get a good, the best exit you can, you'd back up the start of the corner. But if you back up the start of the corner, the middle of your corner is compromised. So the carousel's a fun little corner, or fun big corner, I should say. And coming at the end of the back straight as well, you're entering there some of the highest speeds we see on the racetrack as dances it into the lane, with the rear end getting a bit squirrely on him.
Yeah, just a little bit. Dwayne Burns exits the final corner. We'll see if this is the start of a new lap or the setting of a fast one. Across the line he goes to set a 107.489. A few tenths down on his quickest time, but you can tell that the lap times are consistent at the very least.
What can Stadler do on this latest attempt? The curbs at Watkins Glen, they look so tiny, don't they? I don't like, oh, they're not going to hurt you, but they really bite. Because they're quite sharp curbs. If you get up on them, it just unsettles the car very awkwardly. They're not sort of ones you can glide over. Like on some tracks. Down at turn 1, this particular curb you can use a bit. Same at turn 2. But those ones in the final sector, they're a no-go zone.
Yeah, as is the big curb up there at the top of the S's as we take a look at Will Leslie coming down into the carousel. There's a bump right there that massively unsettles the car if you're on the brakes a bit too late. And you lock up in these things and you just sail straight off. So Will Leslie has navigated that corner satisfactorily. Now down into the last couple corners. As you can see, those curbs very thin at the apex. You do have to avoid those, and a big bump at the apex in the final corner that can really unsettle your car if you hit that. So what can Will Leslie do here? A 106.4, not an improvement on his time. We do have cloud cover over the circuit though, so that means there should be a bit more time left in this track.
I like how he proved us wrong and used those curbs at the final corner straight away. Actually got through there quite nicely on that occasion. Yeah. They do have a bite, but with the wrong angle over them. Jake Fox trying to get himself out of last place in the session. Still looking at a P10 start though, which isn't bad. With 23 cars out there for our main event in a few minutes' time. Out of the last corner. Trying to keep that steering wheel straight. He crosses the line and it's a 108.0. So that's no improvement for him. Dwayne Burns is not far behind him on the racetrack either. He's going to come across the stripe underneath the dark skies. Does it 7.4. Stays 7th.
Okay, so we're seeing that drivers aren't really improving on their times here in the last quarter of the session. Still got 5 minutes left. If you bring it into the pits now, you'll be able to come back out and do one more run, but you got to be right on the money in every single corner in this car. You're managing the grip, managing the sliding, managing the weight transfer all the way through. There's no wings to save you, to help you to keep up the momentum.
That can also be a good thing sometimes. Without that big rear wing pushing the car into the track, you know when you start to slide and then it suddenly grabs and you end up overcorrecting? Not necessarily going to happen quite as much without as much downforce.
Yeah, it's not going to happen because the moment you lose grip, you instantly spear off the track in this thing. So there's no chance for the rear wing to work its magic there. Jake Fox has improved to P9.
There you go.
Oh, we're hearing Fraser Ross has blown it. Sorry, Daniel Stevens, my apologies, has blown his engine out on track, so he won't be able to improve on his current 4th place finish.
So why you get a sequential shifter? No chance of that happening unless you just bang it down the gears too much. H-patterns, very easy to make that mistake. Dropping it too far down, I imagine. If you lose a little bit of focus. That's a 6-6 from Stadler. It's still not enough to improve, and it's 2 tenths down on what he's done. But this often seems to be the case in big quality sessions. Often, you just struggle to find the improvement later on. You start overdriving the car.
Yeah, overdriving the car. It's going to be one of those things the drivers have to be really wary of, particularly towards the final half of the race. We are hearing that the times may get faster as the race goes on. Obviously, the drivers don't have to pit for fuel. They don't really have to pit for tyres either. So there's a chance.
108 lap race as well.
Yeah, of course, and definitely a good chance that the times are going to get faster, but the fatigue is going to set in going around a track like this 108 times in basically a cigar on wheels.
Only one corner to the left as well, so the left arm gets a lot more of a workout than the right.
Right, two corners to the left.
1, 2. But does this one count though?
Yes, it does.
Fine.
Is the driver turning the wheel to the left as he's going through it? Yes, then it's a turn.
Okay, smarty pants. Tell that to Road America's turn 2.
Yeah, well, Road America's turn 2. Yeah, some circuits have a difficult way of defining turns, but I think turn 3 here at Watkins Glen counts as a turn. Surely, you actually have to put in effort to go through it. It's not just a little glide of the steering wheel and you're through.
Okay, 2 to the left and 5 to the right.
Thank you.
But still, Cameron Dance here on a lap. Is it any decent? Can he get himself up onto the front row? All he needs is 5,000ths of a second to eclipse Stadler and go to second. He gets it. He goes to the top.
There we are. Nicely done. Cameron Dance on pole by just under 300ths of a second over Will Leslie. And that's going to be a crucial event in the championship fight, I reckon.
And Leslie's in pit lane, so he's not going to improve at all. Harold Stadler, the last stand, I would think. Maybe sticking provisional pole the way. I think everyone else is just a little bit too far back in terms of their lap times. Wayne Taylor, he's in 6th. He's trying to sneak into the top 5. 30 seconds left on the clock.
All right, well, Taylor's carrying a little bit of damage there on his front nose cone, so don't know if that's going to affect the pace of his car at all. Out of the carousel he goes. Very big drop in revs from 4th to 5th gear. Just sliding it through the penultimate corner, and he had to wind on a bit more of lock as well. I think he went in just a little bit too hard. So let's see what Wayne can do in the number 69. Down the front straight across the line, 107.064 is the time he has to beat. 107.326 as the checkered flag falls. So no improvement there for Wayne Taylor. But it looks like Cameron Dance is your pole man.
Yeah, Harold Stadler improved on his own time by 200ths of a second. Up until that, his first lap of the session was his quickest. His last lap of the session then eclipsed it. So lap 1 and lap 16, his 2 fastest laps.
Wow. Goodness me. A lot of effort getting put into this session. But there we go. That's how the top 10 lines up. It's going to be Cameron Dance and Will Leslie on the front row, with Harold Stadler and Daniel Stevens behind them. Mole, Taylor, Burns, King, Fox, and Ross. So that concludes qualifying. And we're going to jump on into the race server, where we should be joined by 13 other drivers for the 1968 US Grand Prix. It's the International Division of the Majors Series. Who's going to take the crown in the Lotus 49 at Watkins Glen? We'll see in a bit.
this rolling on the back straightaway.
Get ready. This is going to be tight. Out of turn 4, ladies and gentlemen. The All-American 400 is underway.
Gotta be careful. The bumps here can get you every time. Entering the corner, exiting the corner.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now.
He's got traction, he's got everything outside of both of them! Maloney!
Oh, he's taken Anderson. Anderson's up to
Oh my god!
big crash. Oh my goodness, half the field's going to get rolled.
Second very close. These guys are want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no! That's massive! This is it! This is over! I can't believe this! Oh my god! God, what?
Here on SimSpeed TV on the iRacing Esports Network, we are back. We're in the race session now, and we're getting ready to go green for round 12 of the International Division of the Majors Series. This is the 1968 United States Grand Prix. We've got 108 laps coming up in the Lotus 49 around the classic layout of Watkins Glen. And we missed a couple of things just after we pulled out of the qualifying session, Ryan. Harold Stadler actually improved on his lap time, and he is now starting second behind Will Leslie. So that's an excellent run there. Sorry, second behind Cameron Dance, I should clarify. But that's great for Harold. After we saw him struggle to improve on his time throughout the session, now he's got a front row start with his TechSense teammate.
Yeah, we pulled out of that a little bit too early, didn't we? And he improved. We thought they were all done, but he managed to check a flag just before it flew and was able to do one more lap as a result. But this is going to be a really hard slog, this one. These cars are not easy to drive, and to do it 108 times around this track is going to be a mammoth task with no brakes either. There's going to be no cautions. I'm not expecting any pit stops for most of the field. Maybe you could pit, strap on some fresh tyres, but I think the general consensus is that the time you lose by doing so is not going to be able to be overcome by fresh rubber. So I think the longer we get into this, the more and more drivers are going to start to struggle. We're going to see more mistakes, and it's going to turn into a true race on attrition, which I think last year's Lotus 49 at Milwaukee was an attritional race as well, but obviously there we had cautions, plenty of them.
Yeah, it was somewhere along those lines, but these cars, they come from the era before pit stops were really a regular thing in racing. So you fill these things up, they can go the entire race distance, and the tyres can go the distance as well. As we've gotten from our correspondence with Cameron Dance just before, the track temperature is likely going to drop as the race goes on, so we should expect the pace to increase as the laps tick by. Currently, the track is at 39 degrees Celsius, somewhere along those lines. It's mid-afternoon in virtual upstate New York, just coming up to 3 p.m. in sim time, so we're going to finish this race with the sun a little bit lower in the sky.
Just a little bit, but we'll still will truly be under the light of the sun. Won't be any issues in that regard, but yeah, track should maybe get a little bit cooler as we go on, although with 20 odd cars thundering around it, could also actually get hotter. All depends on how much cloud cover there is, and I reckon that car went straight into the tyre bundle on the outside of the carousel there.
Yep, one of those things that happens down at the end of the long straight. You get onto the brakes for the third gear carousel, and as I mentioned in qualifying, there's a big bump as the track falls away over the crest to go down into the corner. If your brakes are too applied at that point, you still got to slow down a bit more, then you are going to lock up and spear off. Will Leslie right there, our pole sitter, about to demonstrate that section of the circuit, and he's in quite the draft as well. We've got two cars in front of him. Over the bump they go and down into the carousel. You almost kind of late apex it, almost a double apex. You swing wide in the middle of the corner and then you come back for the very end. That allows you to get on throttle a bit earlier, gain a bit more speed down that following straight towards the last two corners. And it looks like the session is over and we're going to get the starting grid. for round 12 of the Majors series here at Watkins Glen. Cameron Dance is our pole sitter. He starts on the front row alongside Will Leslie, it seems. It looks like the grid is set from before Harold Stadler improved on his time. So we were wrong, and then we were wrong again. Harold Stadler starts in third. Daniel Stevens joins him on the second row, with Dean Moll and Wayne Taylor behind them. Dwayne Burns and John King 7th and 8th, and Jake Fox and Fraser Ross round out the top 10.
Starting from 11th, Alexander Sheridan, Shane Bowen from 12th, Jonathan Bain 13th, Matthew Clovett on his outside. Luke Critchley and Stephen Williams share the 8th row of the grid ahead of Phil Otto, Martin Houston, Pierre Cousin, Kevin Barber in 20th, Bradley Matheson and Ilya Shamov round out our field.
So we got 22 cars here, and the green flag flies. That was a very short gridding time. Away they go. Cameron Dance got a very good start off the grid. Will Leslie is going to fall under pressure from Stadler. He tries on the inside into turn one, but Leslie sweeping around the outside to keep second place. We've got a couple of cars off at the back of the field in the runoff area. John King and Matthew Clote have had a coming together, but as they come through the S's, this is one of the big choke points around this circuit. The drivers are just feathering the throttle. They've got to be very careful out of these corners. Potential side-by-side running down the back straight. Wayne Taylor versus Shane Bowen. Bowen's on the inside for the carousel as we see a move for second. That's Stadler slipping through on Leslie. Back up into second place, and Bowen completing the move on Taylor, who runs wide, and that allows Jonathan Bean to get in on the action. But my goodness, we're almost at the end of the first lap, and already seeing quite the race for second on back. Cameron Dance has pretty much checked out at the moment. Whoa, hello.
That's an issue for Stephen Williams. He's rotated it at the carousel, it looks like, but I think he's kept out of the fence. Wayne Taylor off as well at the penultimate corner. Will Leslie got a pretty poor start, and Harold Stadler was able to get to his inside. It looked for a moment like he would complete the move at turn one, but he erred on the side of caution, and that paid off because he had a much better run up through the S's and was able to carry that speed down the main straight and took the spot away at the carousel. And now he'll try to pull out a gap. 7 tenths behind Dance. Leslie sticking to his gearbox over the rest of that lap, and down the back straight we go for lap number 2 of 108. You can see how the draft works here in these cars, even without that rear wing. Still a big hole being punched in the air by these bullet-shaped cars.
Bullet, I think, is a good descriptor.
Oh, no,
or cigar
who
as
was
well.
that?
Oh, just as we go to the replay as well, that's something that's happened for Phil Otto. Very slow down the straight. Looks like suspension damage for him, and oh, yeah, that was quite the flip there for Phil Otto.
Who was that? Background, right as we went, yeah. Yeah, it's a Fraser Ross.
Fraser
here.
Ross.
It was coming out of the carousel. I reckon he's grabbed the grass on the left, and it spat him into the armcar on the inside. As for Phil Otto, his suspension damage catapulted him onto his side right as we cut away from that replay. So here we go. Out of the corner for Fraser Ross. Yep, there's the grass. Bang.
Oh, no. Just catches it.
Oh, no!
Whoa.
And bang as well, straight into somebody else.
Wow.
And he ended up in the boot layout.
Yeah, that was the number 10 car. That was Alexander Sheridan. We're going to ride on board with him, see what happened here. So you see Ross spinning up ahead and then fires back over. No.
It was not Alexander Sheridan.
It was not Alexander Sheridan. Okay. Looks like it might have been Jake Fox. So we'll get another angle of this. So there goes Ross spinning up ahead. And then... Oof. Okay, so Ross was already flipped up and over by the time Fox got there, but I mean, there wasn't much Fox could do. He was in a straight line. That all happened so fast. But it's on for the lead, though. Cameron Dance has lost the gap that he built up over the first few laps. Now, Harold Stadler, Will Leslie, and Daniel Stevens all behind him in a line. Proper top 4 fight.
So on that lap just gone, the top 3, all with a 107.2. Daniel Stevens, the 107.1, to claw his way onto the back of that train and make it a 4-way battle. It looks like Harold Stadler actually lifted off the throttle down that back straight, because Will Leslie really closed in on him at the very end of that straight, which would suggest that he was lifting off because he doesn't want to fight Cameron Dance at that point.
Yeah, the two Fitzstye cars will want to stay out of each other's way a bit because, you know, in these cars in a battle situation, if you go side by side through a corner, you already lose a bunch of time. But if you come together, then that's going to be the 1-2, completely destroyed. Stadler back in the draft down the front straight and, again, lifting off early. And seems like it's a bit of an effort to keep Leslie and Stevens behind.
Here we go. Leslie is right up behind him, coming up the S's, and this could be the opportunity. Down this back straight, he's going to get a really good run. Whoops. I don't think there's much that Stadler can do here, and Leslie shows his nose to the inside. On the brakes, yeah, he goes too deep, overcommitted there, and Cameron Dance has run wide as well. It's a hit. Wow, Harold Stadler almost took the lead away there after almost losing second, but Dance very aggressively cut back across his nose and holds on. A lot happened at the carousel that lap.
Yeah, an awful lot. Leslie slips back through on Stevens into the penultimate corner meanwhile, so one position gained back for Will, but he's shown that he's got great pace, great race pace. So we'll see how that turns out for him, but the two TechSense Fitzstye cars have a gap now. Stevens pulls out to have a bit of a look at Will Leslie into turn one and almost slips through, but Leslie is wise to that, covers him off beautifully. So now it's two separate groups here. First and second, third and fourth. We'll see how much the draft comes into effect down the back straight. Stadler and Dance exiting the S's. It looks like Stadler got a slightly better exit than his teammate. In comes the draft for Harold Stadler. And is he going to go for the move? No, he's not. Lifts off again just a little bit, but he had a proper look up the inside.
No, Dance is sliding, and he slides wide enough that Harold Stadler's given an opportunity to get alongside, but he couldn't keep the car there. Heading towards the chute that leads to the penultimate corner, and look at Leslie very aggressively looks to his inside. This time he gets it pulled up, and he takes second back away, and he has to cover down at the final quarter as well.
Well, Cameron Dance straight lining the exit as much as he can. That gives him a slight advantage. Leslie goes defensive on Stadler. It's going to be side by side into turn one between these two. Stadler's ahead in the braking zone and gets the position back. Just then, excellent run out of the corner two from Stadler, retaking second place. But all that rigmarole has given Cameron Dance a little bit more breathing room here.
No complaints from me, but should we remind these guys that there's 102 laps left to go in this race?
I think we should stay quiet. Let's just let them race.
This is definitely showing good signs, though. You've got to wonder who's using their stuff up and who isn't, because it's these early stages where you can really put yourself on the back foot when it comes to tyre life. All the way at the end of the race, you'll start to feel the effects from what you're doing now at this early portion of the stint, or in a pit stop list race, the race itself.
Indeed. Oh, Will Leslie tries again on Harold Stadler. So Stadler back ahead at the line. We'll see if Leslie goes for the move into turn one. He does. Very aggressive on the brakes. Slips through just before the apex. Can he hook up the power, though? No. Stadler carried a bit more momentum thanks to the banking of the corner. Bit of a higher rev range, bit more torque, and able to slip back on by, but you can tell that Leslie is very hungry. He's in trouble. Slight slide from Leslie coming through the right-hander as well, so the driver's really starting to push at the moment. But this isn't the only battle that's going on track at the moment. Just behind these guys for 5th and 6th, Dwayne Burns and Dean Mole have been keeping each other very good company. Mole has piled the pressure on Burns, started ahead of him on the grid, but lost out at the start. And now, a better exit down this following straight. Looks like Mole might be able to jump on by Dwayne Burns here. Side by side again. Burns just leaves him the room, turns in a little bit later, but he's got the inside again for the final corner.
Trouble
he's not
behind
going to
them,
take
Reese.
the chance.
Shane Bowen's gone around, and what was a 3-car scrap with Alexander Sheridan and Jonathan Bain. We need a replay of that. I think he's managed to keep it off the fence. Here we go, thanks to Mosim simulation. So through the carousel, they were side by side, and Bowen ends up spread eagled across the inside curve down here at this next corner. There's the move in the foreground you were talking about. Now, does he lose it by himself? Ooh, I wonder if he got into the left rear of the preceding car, which would have been Jonathan Bain.
Yeah, might have. Let's have a look from the onboard with Shane Bowen. But this is something that can happen in this corner. Oh, yeah, maybe Bowen pinched the brakes trying to slow up a little bit more into the corner as well. Because once you do that, then the rear end just breaks free in this thing.
Yeah, I think he did pinch the brakes, and he's managed to avoid contact with the car and the fence. So good job from him. He will live to fight another day. Here's Lotus 49. They do, of course, have a spare car up their sleeves, but you never want to have to take it, as Gavin Barber and Matthew Clowett run side by side, and that's a move made for Matthew Clowett. Let's go back to the front, because it's closed up again, and Stadler was on the shallow line entering turn 1 as a big cloud descends over that part of the circuit.
Yeah, very dark here. But it looks like Daniel Stevens has dropped off the back of this one as well at the penultimate corner on the previous lap. He ran wide into the gravel, so now it's just a battle for the top 3 between these guys. Stadler in the draft again versus Dance, but does not go for the move. Keeps Will Leslie behind. Oh, big slide from Cameron Dance in the mid-corner. Allows Stadler to catch up slightly, but late apex from Dance helps him to maintain the momentum onto the straight again. Stadler out for another look. They got to be careful here because Stadler is going to be aware that not only is he competing for the Legends Championship, his main rival Stevens a position behind him, and Cameron Dance fighting for the overall championship lead, so these guys can't afford to make a mistake here.
I reckon Will Leslie had his nose nestled firmly in the tailpipe of Harold Stadler coming out of the last corner there, and again through turn 1. He is, I would say, the fastest of the 3, but he's just struggling to find a way by Stadler in a place where Stadler can't fight back. That's an issue for Gavin Barber at the final corner.
Okay, let's have a look at what happened to him here. We saw Gavin Barber yielding to another car just before Matthew Clowett. See what happened to him down at the final turn here. Turns in all right. Oh, but I think just a bit of oversteer coming up to the apex. He corrected that, and then the car just went back around. Fortunately, able to keep it on the track. Let's see if the wheel worked. See what happened to him here. Down into the corner he goes, and wow, okay. Looked like the revs went up there. Might that have been a sticking throttle? That's weird. Might have. He also might have missed a gear. That's a possibility. These cars have an H-pattern manual transmission. You don't need the clutch to shift, but there's still a chance that if you don't kick it in right with the throttle, then it's just going to rev up in neutral.
Remember when I said that Will Leslie might have had his nose nestled in Stadler's tailpipe?
Yeah.
Well, look at his nose.
Oh, that's no good. The thing is, he can't really come into the pits and fix it either, because we know that this race is likely going to run without any pit stops. So as the two Fitstye cars battle up ahead, there is the damage to Leslie's nose. That's going to hurt him a bit. Oh yeah, big understeer from Leslie. It's going to hurt his straight line performance as well. If he doesn't stay in the gap here to Stadler and Dance, he might fall off them. They're holding station really well there, though, at the front. Stadler's just doing everything he needs to stay right in touch with Cameron Dance without actually passing him. Meanwhile, Wayne Taylor and Matthew Clowett for 11th and 12th position. It looks like Cloet has the run here on Mr. Taylor. So down into the first corner. Taylor a bit more aggressive on the brakes, can carry it round the outside and back onto the throttle again, protects the position. It's one of the things you can do down at that turn, and that turn was not there when this car raced at Watkins Glen. It was a bit of a different layout back then. The modern front straight had not yet been built, and the start-finish line was actually on the entry to the S's. So bit of an interesting factoid for you as Cloet pulls out again. Wayne Taylor lifts off early to let him go. Seems like a wise move in this circumstance. Taylor now has a car in front of him he can use to draft.
While that was happening, here we go, here's Gavin Barber getting up the inside and putting himself into 14th. If he can pull it up and get it turned, which he can't. So back to 15th for him. Up the front, meanwhile, oh, good crossover.
Nice.
But he's going to be on the outside unless that 88 lets him go, which he does. Cameron Dance is sliding every lap through the carousel. Last time by it, allowed Stadler alongside again, but as we've seen before, he wasn't able to keep the car there and actually complete the maneuver. So if there's anywhere that Dance is vulnerable, it's down in that carousel section, but whatever reason, Stadler's not being able to capitalize on it.
The big thing I think with Dance's performance at the carousel is, yes, he is sliding, yes, he is running wide, but the crucial thing is he's bringing it back into the inside at the very final phase of the corner. It allows him to straighten out the acceleration zone and get a bit of extra momentum down the straight. In a car with wings, you'd probably have a bit of a better time just taking a clean line through the carousel. But in a car like this, if you can square off the exit, then it'll pay dividends for you.
So Will Leslie continuing to hang on. I feel like as soon as Stadler's able to pass Dance, he's going to check out on these guys. And Leslie might be able to fight with Dance. There's 16 cars on the lead lap. Sorry, 17 still. That was Phil Otto going another lap down. So watch Dance here. He actually meets the apex quite nicely that time. So for once, Dance has got through there very smoothly. But it wasn't necessarily fast, because look how Stadler closed up to him. In fact, Stadler thought about it, and then thought second time around, maybe not. He's being cautious, which I think is probably because there is so long left to go in this race. He doesn't want to give himself damage early on like Leslie has done.
Yeah, well, Stadler's being rightfully cautious, I reckon. Because, you know, these cars, they are still Formula 1 cars, so they're extremely fragile if they come together at speed. So Stadler just doing the right thing, I reckon, hanging back, waiting for the right opportunity to make a move and make it stick, because it's all about timing around a circuit like this with so many fast corners, so many braking zones. If you're out of rhythm, then Will Leslie would be able to swing through and take the both of you in one fell swoop if he was lucky. Once again, bit of a slide from Cam Dance through the carousel, and Stadler catches up down the back stretch. Again, the draft, but Stadler backing out of it. Leslie, you saw, had a little bit of a look as well. But these cars are, at least from the outside, it's starting to look a bit more like a modern open-wheeler race with the little twitches in the braking zones, the little looks. But it's certainly fun to watch. Up into the S's then for our leaders as Jonathan Bean and Shane Bowen, 8th and 9th down the front stretch. These two. Jonathan Bean started 13th. Shane Bowen started 12th. Jonathan, one of the big gainers in this field. He, Alexander, Mr. Bowen, Luke Critchley as well, all having gained 4 or 5 positions. As there we go. There's the move from Harold Stadler, and almost going 3 wide through the carousel. That's Harold Stadler into the lead. The swap has taken place between the two Fitstyle Motorsport cars. but Will Leslie was unable to take advantage of any of that.
Well, there we go. And now we see if Stadler has that pace that he's been showing behind Dance to run away as Dance grabs the curb quite awkwardly at the final corner there. And Will Leslie, having seen Stadler finally complete that move, will be fancying his own chances of going through as well. Maybe as early as this lap now, lap 18 of the 108.
Yeah, we're coming up to 20% race distance now. Once we're at about lap 23, lap 24, we'll have 4/5 of the race to go. Dance could come back at Stadler down the back stretch. He's really drawing up in the draft, but backs out of it. Stadler remaining in the lead, but Ben and Bowen, they look like they might come together soon. Just compare lap times. Last lap from Jonathan Bean, 107.4, 107.368 for Shane Bowen. So just chipping away at that gap ever so gradually. One well-timed draft, one lunge down the inside can secure this. But for the time being, looks like they're staying well and truly line astern. Once again, it's just a question of being cautious, of timing your moves properly. Last car running at the moment, one of the last cars running. Ilya Shamov having gained a few positions. Phil Otto as well, just outside the top 20. He's got a bit of time to make up. About half a lap ahead of him is Pierre Cousin. So if he wants to jump back into the top 20, he's got a bit of time to wait and a bit more pace to extract. But the top three battle continues. Stadler, crucially, has that 2 or 3 car length gap over Dance and Leslie. A little bit of extra breathing room always helps in a situation like that, and Dance, it seems, putting on a great defensive drive, keeping Will Leslie behind him.
So Stadler has not pulled away, has he, at all? Dance is sticking with him, which is good to see. And this battle between Mole and Burns is staying pretty stagnant too. Neither of these guys able to get away from each other. Makes you wonder just how powerful that draft is down the back straight. Visibly, it doesn't seem too big, but well, evidently, even though Stadler got by, he's not doing anything with it. And pretty sure Dean Mold passed Burns earlier on, didn't he? He's still only just in front of him.
Yeah, you see that Burns is able to hang on here in the draft. If you get a good run out of the S's, you can translate that into the draft down the straight. But the positions stay the same for now. Mole also carrying a bit of damage to his front end, so he could be in trouble versus Burns later on if that behavior comes back to bite him. Meanwhile, Ben and Bowen, they've closed up a bit here. Gap under 0.2 of a second between them. And Ben really trying for a move now on Bowen. Oh, Shane runs wide in the last corner. Thought for a second Jonathan Bean was... Thought for a second that Shane Bowen, I got them mixed up, was going to go for the pits here. But ultimately, no. That is not what you do in this particular round. Oh, careful, guys. Cameron Dance protects from Will Leslie down the back stretch, sorry.
Up the front, down the back straight.
Yeah, up the front, down the back, through the sideways stretch on this side of the track as well. This top three not letting each other go at all. Harold Stadler has not been able to get away. Will Leslie has not been able to get up the inside of Cam Dance there. Just a bit more load being put on the front tyres for Cam. And through he goes, same as always. But once again, we're seeing Will Leslie. He's searching for every single opportunity to try and make this move and spoil the Fitzstein Motorsport team's day.
a shame we don't see Formula One coming to Watkins Glen anymore. Obviously, the US Grand Prix is currently held at Circuit of the Americas down in Texas. Rather, it was last year, and it should have been this year, and it probably will be next year. Before that, it was Indianapolis, wasn't it? At the road course there. A very infamous race took place during one of those events. But at some stage, they stopped coming here. And it's disappointing because I think this track would suit modern-day Formula One cars incredibly well. They'd be flat out through the S's. There'd be some big... Oh, hang on a sec. Who's that?
That was Ilya Shamov. Couple of issues there down into the carousel. We'll get a quick replay of that one.
So, Shamov running an 18th.
Looks like a pinch of the brakes coming into the carousel. You're going to see Shamov dive in here, and then the car just goes whoop, round it goes. I don't know if that was a hardware issue or something like that, the brakes just being planted, but Alexander Sheridan was lucky to get away with that one. If he was a tenth of a second too late, then Shamov probably might have spun into him.
Live pictures. Will Leslie was up the inside at turn 2. Now he's around the outside at the carousel, and Cameron Dance is still ahead of him, though.
Oh, side by side in the S's. Leslie getting the run. Around the outside is not going to work there, so Dance slots back in ahead.
Oh, now he's on the outside for turn 6. Oh. And that doesn't work either. What about the outside for turn 7?
This is just over-under after over-under going on here. Dance messes up the exit slightly. Leslie gets the better run off the corner, but he's not able to take advantage of it. Had to lift just a little bit. And then down into turn 1 they go. Leslie goes
he's struggling.
for it. Oh, careful. Oh, a bit of contact.
Just got away with it.
Only just, but the gap is now much larger. Dance does have a little bit of traffic through the S's, so we'll see how that works out for him. Another view of that on the slow motion. Leslie up the inside, but just braked a little bit too late. There was no way that he'd be able to clear Dance before they came to the apex.
You know what that did? That gave Harold Sadler a 2-second advantage.
Well, now all he has to do is hit his marks, keep it going. Bowen and Ben, meanwhile, for 8th and 9th once again. Bowen had just got through in the S's, but Ben is going to come back at him, coming into the carousel on the outside. See if he can hook up the late apex. Whoa. Shane Bowen having a bit of trouble keeping the momentum going down there on the inside line. And, oh, the gear shift there. That is what spoiled the exit. So that means Mr. Bean might come back by around the outside, but no. Shane Bowen protects it. You can tell now these two know what's at stake for these two positions, and they're going to keep fighting over the next few laps, but Shane Bowen secures that position.
You mentioned him struggling through the carousel, Shane Bowen. He had the right sides very close to the grass. I don't think he touched it, but he was using a lot of the curb, and that unsettled the car, and he was basically having a big wobble all the way around the corner, which is why his exit was so bad as well. See if Jonathan Bain can stick with Bowen here, because it took Bowen 20 odd laps to get past him, so their paces are too far apart. Might see a similar story to what happened when Stadler got by Dance, and this time there's no third car to intervene. To go back to that point I was making before we sort of got a big burst of action, modern Formula One here would be great. Flat out through the S's. I don't think they'd take the bus stop because probably too much grass and too awkward for those cars. And so you'd see some big moves down into the carousel. And if they didn't take the boot, maybe some into turn 6 as well.
Yeah, but I think that there's not much chance Formula One would go here without the boot. The lap times would probably be something like 45 seconds long. That's a good run from Jonathan Bean out of the final corner, but he's not going to be able to take advantage of it into turn 1. There's other things you've got to consider as well, like the safety standards. Oh, no! Mr. Bowen messing up the exit of turn 1 there. Looked like the rear end just broke free. So that means that Jonathan Bean back through into 8th place.
Safety standard. So Watkins Glen is it's a grade 2 license. So it would need a bit of upgrading. It needs to be grade 1 for Formula 1. But grade 2 can host just about anything else, with the exception of MotoGP.
Exactly right. But I do agree, though, seeing a modern Formula 1 car around this place would be spectacular. We do have a pitter, though, Phil Otto, and he's been carrying that damage for some time, has Phil. So this is going to be a bit of a long wait here in the pits if he's already used up his spare car. Wheel is a bit left-hand down as well, so he's had a big incident out there on track. We've got a couple more cars peeling in too. There was Pierre Cousin in the pits as well, Ilya Sharmov. They come in for repairs. Fraser Ross has not made another appearance out on the circuit since his crash. That's what happened to Sharmov. The brakes just locked up over the crest, and then there wasn't much he could do. Straight into the wall and onto his roof for good measure.
Onto his helmet, rather. I was going to say good holiday destination as well, because, you know, go to Watkins Glen, watch the race, and hop off to New York. Then I looked it up and realised it's a 4-hour drive between the two of them.
Yes. Yes, indeed. It's closer to Toronto than New York is Watkins Glen, though it does reside in New York State.
Although getting across customs probably means it'll take a bit longer than New York.
Yeah. Not too far from Niagara Falls either, which is one of the places you can check in, at least in a world before what happened this year.
Fine, I'll go to Watkins Glen and then I'll go to Canada instead.
That's
Won't
good.
go to New York. I've got family in Canada, actually. In
Yeah.
Toronto. Not a bad idea.
Lucky you. You can make a proper week out of it, can't you?
I've always said, when I eventually go to America, I'm going to spend a hell of a lot of money and spend a hell of a lot of time over there.
Yeah, I want to do exactly the same.
Too much to do.
Oh,
You know what the proper dream is, right, Reese?
what's that?
You make a living commentating in America. Then you get paid to go and travel America.
Yeah, yes indeed. Oh no, Jonathan Bean with a huge sideways moment in the carousel. Tell you what, we're seeing more and more drivers fall victim to the inside of that corner. You've got to be careful with how you trail the brakes into that particular turn, because the rear end will just swing around. Let's have another look then at what happened to him. It's Jonathan Bean ahead then of Shane Bowen at the end of the straight. Jumps on the brakes, over the crest. Oh yeah, that's where it started. Well held by Jonathan Bean, I have to say, but if your car is at the wrong angle over that crest, then there's not much you can do. For the lead, though, Cameron Dance has caught back up to Harold Stadler.
I'm trying to find the lap record of this layout.
Yeah, you probably won't get an accurate reading for Formula One cars, at least, because the this final turn and the first turn, they were put in the early 1970s, which was after this car raced at Watkins Glen. But I think the lap times might be reasonably similar. It's roughly the same distance. You still had a couple of corners to navigate.
Yeah, Watkins then from 56 to 70. When you came out of the chute, you did a straight line to what's pretty much somewhere in the boot layout. There was a kink to the left, and then the big bend, which still remains at the boot, but in a different location. And then a weird left and a very sharp right. It was an odd little course.
Yeah, it was. The third last corner, I think, was roughly... the rough location of that is where the start-finish line is now. So if you can imagine that, at this corner that Dance and Stadler are going through, instead they went straight on at that corner. The actual road is still there in the infield that they used to use, and then back out onto the straight. This is where the third last corner would have been. Yeah, you see there that building, those garages that goes a bit diagonally up at the top of the screen. Alongside that is where the circuit used to run.
Here we go.
Yeah.
A major in 1971, the Big Bend and the turns leading up to it were eliminated and replaced with a new pit straight, where the start-finish line was moved to, and the 90 became turn 1 instead of turn 8. So
Yes,
they did a complete backflip on the layout of the track.
Yeah, it was quite a substantial change for the circuit at the time, and would have been the last fundamental change before they added the boot later on in the 1970s. I think it would have been the year after the front straight upgrades were completed, the boot was brought in for Watkins Glen.
What was the bigger change, that to this, or the original public road course on asphalt, cobbles, concrete, wood, dirt, and steel to that?
Easily.
That was 10.6 kilometers long.
Yeah, the current racetrack here at Watkins Glen was built because they weren't able to race at the old public road circuit anymore. In the early 1950s, there were proper public road races held around the Watkins Glen area, but it was incredibly dangerous. There was an accident where a few people were unfortunately killed, so that meant that they had to move to a purpose-built racetrack, and this was the location chosen for it.
Yeah, racing in America took place largely on public road courses for a lot back then across the country, and then there was this big movement for safety or something, and they started building permanent racetracks, which is good. I'm glad street racing has been kept alive, though, albeit with a lot more safety implementation. It's my favourite stuff. I wish we saw more of it on iRacing.
Yeah, street circuits are excellent now with the safety standards that you include and the changes made over the years. We already have Belle Isle, we have Long Beach as well as a test track. A couple more street circuits surely wouldn't go amiss. Duclos had a little bit of an incident there into the carousel, but he's managed to keep it going in P10. He's got the battle between Shane Bowen and Jonathan Bean up in front of him, though, so he's starting to gain a bit of an advantage here. Could Matthew Clout be on for a top 8?
Potentially. He started this one from 14th, so he's definitely shown some good pace, and he's slowly working his way forward. Bowen and Bean right in front. Bean, of course, getting back by Shane Bowen. Bowen had completed that maneuver, hadn't he? And then I pondered whether he'd be able to pull away. Meanwhile, Harold Stadler has been reeled in by Cameron Dance. That gap has come down to 0.3 of a second. Or, it was 0.3 of a second when they last crossed the line. It's opened up to half a second on this lap. So, while we were taking a trip down history road, Cameron Dance got his head down and started making some progress. And he's left Will Leslie behind. He's 3.7 seconds away.
Yeah, Will Leslie has completely fallen off the back of that front end battle. He's all on his own at the moment. So, the battle for the lead, this battle that you're looking at now, and the one between Dean Moll and Dwayne Burns are the closest battles out on track at the moment. Down into turn 1, these guys go for 8th on back. Equidistant at the apex. But there's a little more space here for the draft to really come into effect. We'll see how Jonathan Bean takes the S's this time round. He keeps it nice and smooth. Good exit as well. The early shift up into the top gear. Away he goes, and looks like Shane Bowen not far up enough to make the move, but in the draft range of Matt Cloet. So there might be a change for position 9 in the next couple of laps if Cloet keeps up this form, as Harold Stadler sets a new fastest lap. 106.5 is the time, and we're starting to get down to the kind of times that we saw in qualifying. Cameron Dance has also done his fastest lap of the race so far, so the top two absolutely motoring right now. Oh, hello.
That's an issue. Jonathan Bain, slow coming out of the last corner.
And losing 2 positions as well. So let's have a look at what happened here. It would have been down at the final corner, considering the pace he was at when we came to him. Now, did he get a little bit too... Oh, yeah. Bit of a slide as he came off the curb, and then the car just bucked the other way. Great avoiding action by the other two drivers. Shane Bowen would have seen this coming and known pretty much exactly what to do. There's the slide from Bean, and whoa, oh, that probably was a bit of a Hail Mary moment for Shane Bowen. He didn't quite know if Bean would slide up right into him. Interesting decision to go around the outside, but it worked out for both of them. And now, oh no, there's another problem there for Luke Critchley. Looks like Matt Clode has managed to get through on Shane Bowen in the process of all of that, but for Luke Critchley, leading the sportsman standings
In this race.
in this race at least.
Well, he was. Is he still? After
He is
that?
still. He is. And thank goodness for that, because that could have been a very difficult incident to pick apart. Big spin at the carousel, and once again, good avoiding action by Wayne Taylor.
Oh, here we go. In 1970, so this is on the old layout with the...
Taylor had a few issues of his own.
Yeah.
Goodness me.
Whoa! Before the renovation, so this is the old weird layout. But still, a 1:03 from Jackie Ipps in qualifying for 1970 US Grand Prix.
Righto. And the cars would have had rudimentary wings at that point as well.
That track was 2.35 miles long, so that was still that's 200 meters shorter than this layout.
Yeah, right. So, not that huge of a difference in terms of length, but in terms of the way you attack it, it's definitely changed over the years. It means that out of turn 1 into the S's, you have a bit more of a run, a bit more of a straight. So, the entry to the S's, you've really got to take care on this modern layout.
The Cup Series qualifying record's held by an Aussie, though, so that's good.
Yep, Marcus Ambrose.
Or as the Americans call him, Marcos Ambros.
Yeah, he had some good runs at Watkins Glen during his NASCAR career, did Marcos. But these are rear-wheel drive V8 engine cars of a bit of a different kind that we're looking at the moment. And Critchley going through on some traffic, keeping up his 12th position. That's Bradley Matheson down there in 17th place. He is actually on a bit of a fight for position with John King, is Bradley Matheson. He has fallen back in the last few laps, but those guys were fighting for position just before, so remains to be seen what's going to come of that. Another car in the pits, Jonathan Bean, and I think he might have a bit of damage, and he does indeed. Have a look at that nose. A bit more crinkled than expected.
That's like the damage we saw in Will Leslie's car, actually.
Yeah. But I think because Jonathan was... it wasn't necessarily light contact with another car, it was more heavy contact with the wall for Jonathan, so obviously the damage needs to be fixed quick sharp. Stadler and Dance still holding station in the lead. The Fitzstye Motorsport 1-2 continues. The question is, between the two of them, as we're almost coming up to half race distance, Cameron Dance might need to conserve a bit now. See if he still has some tread left in his tyres at the very end. The tyres should go the full distance, but there'll probably still be a bit of a performance difference, so the drivers need to keep an eye on that.
This car has a pretty illustrious history in Formula 1 as well, doesn't it? 42 races, 23 podiums, 12 wins, 2 Constructors' Championships, 2 Drivers' Championships. Graham Hill in 1968 and Jochen Rindt in 1970, which are their 2 Constructors' Series wins as well. Also, the last win of his career for Jim Clark was in this car.
And the Lotus 49 pretty much set the ball rolling on what would go on in F1 in the 1970s as Clout and Bowen back together. There was a bit of a mistake from Clout on the exit of the carousel, and Bowen straight through on the straight. Looks like, oh no. Hang on a minute. That was, is that Sheridan letting Bowen by, or no? No, it's not. The overlays getting me once again. That was Shane Bowen and Matthew Clout trading positions there. But the Lotus 49 setting the ball rolling for the 1970s, because the 49 was the first F1 car to use the Ford Cosworth DFV V8. And Lotus and other British teams came under criticism from team principals like Enzo Ferrari. He called them garagiste. He thought, you know, they're just buying their engines. They're not real constructors, as Clout has another go up the inside of the carousel on Shane Bowen here, but Bowen runs a bit wide, lets him go through. Can he pick up the exit and pass him back by? Have a look at that change in speed between the two of them. This is almost going to be a move. No, it's not. Shane Bowen not up far enough to get the move back. But the DFV ended up being the most used engine in Formula One throughout the 1970s. Lotus used it. Many other British teams used it, like
Most
Williams.
of the teams, yeah.
Yeah, the vast majority of the teams, actually. It probably would have been the Renaults, the Ferraris, something like that would have been running their own engines. But everyone else, just smack a DFV in there and away you go. It's a good engine, too.
Did you know this car raced in Australia and New Zealand?
I did know that.
Not
in
as
the
part
Tasman
of the
series.
Yes, exactly. Well, obviously it raced at the Australian Grand Prix, but yeah, part of the Tasman series as well. What tracks did that visit? Pukekohe, Levin, whatever the heck that is, Wigram, I don't know, Terratonga, Surfers Paradise.
Yeah, that
Warwick.
was Surfers Paradise Raceway, not the modern street circuit.
Warwick Farm.
Oh, that's a classic.
Sandown and Longford.
Yeah, Warwick Farm was at the horse racing track. There was an extra road circuit built, but there's a big fight going on track at the moment. This three-way fight. Clout, Bowen, and now it looks like creeping up onto the back of them, Martin Houston. That's not for position, though. Martin down in position 15. He is a lap down on these guys on the lead lap. But Clout and Bowen showing no signs of leaving each other alone, and if they keep up at the pace, they might catch up to Alexander Sheridan, but he's on his own at the moment, running 107.3s. As we take a look at a problem for Gavin Barber in the carousel. Just swings out on entry and not much recovering from that. Big tank slapper and into the wall. So Mr. Barber now is going to fall behind Jonathan Bean in the position stakes. That's what happened to him on board. He almost had it recovered, but then the weight shifted again and around he went. So Barber now carrying a lot of damage. He has elected not to bring his car in, so not as aerodynamically sound as it was, but at the very least he's still out there and fighting. Stadler and Dance, meanwhile, for the lead again. It looks like they're just flying in formation at the moment. They know that there's an awful lot to go in this race. They can't afford to push too hard.
Yeah, I think Dance definitely biding his time. The fact that this gap is staying so constant would suggest that he is pretty comfortable right behind Stadler right now. And when the time comes, he'll be able to push a little bit harder and try and put a move on him. Will Leslie, meanwhile, is now 7 seconds away. 12 cars left on the lead lap. Jake Fox about to go a lap down, so it'll become 11 in a minute.
And that's Gavin Barber bringing it into the pits. He tried to go around and see how the car felt, but obviously not to his liking, so he's going to bring that in, get into the spare car, and out he goes. You get one spare car in the Majors Series. You've got to be careful about when you use it. It's at about this point that we'll see fatigue start to set in, start to see drivers making more and more mistakes, and some pretty heavy crashes may eventuate. So as we take a look at Stadler and Dance, they haven't left each other alone, but coming up onto the back of Shane Bowen now is Matthew Clote into the draft down the back straight and gradually gaining time as they dip into the carousel once more. Sheridan with a 107.3, Shane Bowen a 107.5, Matt Clote a 108.8, so not the greatest lap for Mr. Clote, and might have had something to do with how they've ended up as they are. Oh no, big slide from Clote in the penultimate corner. He recovered it well though, kept it going. Just felt like, I think, the rear end broke free as he trailed the brakes into the penultimate corner and had a little bit of a half spin, but you can tell he's pushing that thing. He's got some great potential for pace, but Bowen with a really good exit out of the first turn, up into the S's once again. The track is cambered, there's concrete down on the racing line, a little bit less grip available to you at the very apex of the corner, and then flat out from here. You might deal with a bit of sliding, a bit of twitching from the car on the very exit, but once you get onto the straight, it's nice and stable, and then you've got to load up the fronts for the carousel. Early turn in for Clote, and just kicks the rear end out a little bit over the curbs as Stadler sets another new fastest lap. Bit of a compromised exit for Matthew Clote there, and Shane Bowen gains an ever so slight advantage, probably an extra few centimeters on him into the braking zone.
You know what Director J's favourite segment of motorsport coverage is, Reese?
What's that?
Crank it up in NASCAR. And you know how good these cars sound?
Oh, they sound really good. They got that rasping sound of the Cosworth DFV. There's another car in the pits. Oh, I'm seeing Luke Critchley has had another off down at the... Oh, and it's Clote in the pits. Okay. So something's obviously gone on there. Luke Critchley, meanwhile, has managed to get it going again, but that was quite the spin for him down at the penultimate corner. I'm just going to go back and check, see if anything happened to Matthew Clote before he came in. Does look like the car for Clote was quite twitchy coming into the final corner. But I have no idea what his deal is at the moment. Critchley's deal, though, it was just too deep. Sailed past the apex, and the gravel did a good job of slowing him up, didn't it?
Certainly did. Definitely
Clote's
not
out of the car.
Yeah, well, there we go. He's retired from the race. I was going to say, it's definitely not a fresh tyre, I think, but Stadler just did the fastest lap of the race 2 laps ago. So a big issue for Matthew Clote, and he has to abort. Hopefully he can get back in and at least salvage some points, but that's his chances of the top 10 out the window, you would think. Critchley's spin as well is going to drop him a lap down pretty quickly. We should, I've got to think of another word for it because copyright. Turn
Put
the
up
sim
the
speed
slider.
sound up.
We've got the Aussie Greg Hill appreciation moment, Jay says, and I would agree with that. Aussie Greg Hill, the sound guy at iRacing. Let's have a bit of appreciation for Mr. Greg Hill here coming up through the S's. Into the carousel once more for our race leaders here. Stadler and Dance have held it down beautifully at the front of the field, and you just see Will Leslie 9 seconds back on them now. So things have gotten a little bit worse now for Mr. Leslie. For Mr. Stevens, he could potentially come under some pressure from Dean Mole, who's managed to break free of the clutches of Dwayne Burns. And Mole, despite carrying that damage still, he has been running a bit faster than Daniel Stevens over the last couple of laps on average. So potential there for the top 4 to be changed at some point.
4 laps away from halfway. A possibility this one goes time certain as well. The race clock is about 55 minutes. And we are 4 laps away from halfway, so, you know.
Yeah, there is a time limit of 2 hours in this session. If we see some issues for the guys at the front and the pace drops, then we might indeed go time certain, but our director Jay has assured us that it's going to be dead on, 108 laps. We'll see who's right at the end. Jay's math says 119 minutes should be the race length. And our old friend, the predictometer, says that we'll have 30 seconds to spare when the cars cross the line. So it's going to be pretty tight, Ryan, either way.
Yeah. So, still a second now between Stadler and Dance. So that's opened up just a little bit. Stadler was 4 tenths quicker last lap. Luke Crishley is behind him on the track. He's 10th overall, a lap down. But he is still leading the sportsman race in this group. Then Will Leslie back there in 3rd is 10 seconds down on the race. Leaders in a land of his own with that damage to his nose. Not showing any signs of being able to go forward, but not showing any signs of being caught by 4th place Daniel Stevens, who's 11 seconds behind him.
Update on Matthew Clowett. It looks like it's a confirmed retirement for him. He is disconnected from the server, which is a big shame to see, because I reckon if Clowett had kept up the pace he had, depending on what happened, he might have been on for a top 5. But either way, that's the way the cookie crumbles. There's another fastest lap for Harold Stadler. We're now into the 1:06.4s on race pace. That'll probably fall again and again before the end of this one. Remember, the track started out at 40 degrees at the start of the session. It's now down to 35 and continuing to fall. So a little bit of extra time to be found every single lap. It's a nice sedate run through the carousel with Luke Critchley, who's rounding out the top 10. He is the first car off the lead lap now, so there's only 9 cars left on the lead lap here. Critchley has a good advantage over Jake Fox just behind him.
They should do a sim speed slow-mo as well of Daniel Stevens into the carousel about 20 seconds ago.
Oh,
he
yeah.
Decided for the he went for the reverse
wow.
entry approach.
That he did. That was quite nice from Stevens. So we'll have another look at this one down the long back stretch here at Watkins Glen, reaching a top speed of somewhere around 290, 300 kilometers an hour. And then over the crest, he got a big dose of oversteer, got it recovered, and then the car slapped back at him again, whined on a bit more lock. But that's awesome there from Daniel Stevens to keep it going in that circumstance. And he
Had
kept
another
it back on the
slide as
racing
well.
line as well.
Yeah. 2 slides entering the corner and did a good job gathering it up. So, he's still pushing up there in 4th place, hoping to catch Leslie, but it doesn't seem like it's viable at the moment.
Yeah, Leslie's continuing to drop to Stadler and Dance. He's now 12.5 seconds behind them. When we last checked in with him, he was the gap was still under 10 seconds. So it looks like Will Leslie's pace has really started to drop off here, and I don't know if Daniel Stevens will be able to catch up to him though, because they're running pretty equal lap times down in the low 107s.
We are officially at half race distance, and my race clock says 1 hour and a minute have elapsed.
Exactly 1 hour, right there. Now the predictometer just said 1 hour to go right now, so we're going to be here for a little while longer, Ryan, before we decide who is the winner of this race.
One of those two, I'd say.
Yeah, most likely. At least how it stands at the moment. They have a dominant lead to two Fit-Sty cars.
This race needs a pit stop. I think it's just too long for one race. I mean, obviously these cars can go full fuel, but a 2 hour stint, I think it's just too long. It's not an endurance event, you know, with cars that are designed to run that long in.
Well, you say that, but Formula One races in this era, and especially in the 1950s, could run up to 3 hours in length.
True.
Yeah, the modern standards of today, you know, have a couple of pit stops in there, have to use 2 compounds of tyres, race distance of over 300 kilometres. Those rules had not been instated at this time, so what you're seeing, this format, is what they'd be running back then. 108 laps with no stops.
There's a reason those rules got implemented, I think.
Yeah, Jay's made a very good point. Back then, you'd also see probably only 2 or 3 cars on the lead lap as well, because there were no safety cars either. And reliability was obviously a lot worse than it is today. I mean, these days it's a given that you're going to see most of a Formula One field finish a Grand Prix, but back in the 1960s, even through into the 1990s and the early 2000s, you'd have a lot of cars just go pop in near towards the end of a Formula One race, and sometimes only half the field would actually see the checkered flag. It looked like a potential change of position between 2 cars there as our leaders now coming up to lap these guys. It looks like it was just Stadler going through on lapped cars, but now that they're in the traffic, there's potential for Dance to make up the gap again. But having said that, it's been pretty clean so far, I have to say. And in terms of the on-track action between cars, Ryan, this has been really clean.
It certainly has. The 1968 US Grand Prix was won by 24 seconds by Jackie Stewart, who did not take pole. That went to Mario Andretti.
Ah.
It was won in the Ford, fortunately.
Okay, showing your brand allegiance there.
I'm just hunting for pit stops. One site said there was no pit stops, but Andretti's Lotus was dragging bodywork, so he had to pit, which stopped just the tail of the field. But from what I can tell, there were no pit stops for actual pit stops' sake, just for damage and whatnot.
Yep, 0 pit stops for pit stops' sake, because I mean this is also before the era of you know, real experimentation with tyre technology, tyre compounds, tyre treads as well. Slick tyres were used in Formula One for the first time in 1971, I believe. So The era of this car still a few years away from that, and these tyres were built to last. Because obviously back then, pit stop technology as well was not very advanced. They still had, the old crank jacks to get the car up off its wheels. None of the technology that you see today to make pit stops only 2 or 3 seconds.
Deacon Mole on Daniel Stevens. Last lap for Mole was a 106.6 and Daniel Stevens a 106.9, so 0.3 quicker as Harold Sadler does another purple lap at the front of the field.
Down to the 106.3s. I wonder if we're going to see lap times in the 105s before we see the checkered flag. Daniel Stevens is keeping it nice and clean. Dean Mole still with that damage, but 0.3 quicker again on that lap. Obviously helped a little bit by the draft that he's getting here from Jonathan Bain, and it'll help him again down the back straight. Oh, tiny mistake from Mole though, running wide in the final corner of the S's. Thought for a second that he was going to get into the wall there, but into the draft he goes once again. A little bit of weaving from Jonathan Ben. I think he was probably under the impression that Mole would have had an optimum exit and jetted by him before they got to the corner. So we'll see what the lap time is like at the end of this one, because Stevens, it seems, is looking really smooth at the moment. Barely putting a foot wrong. And his lap time is going to be a 106.9 once again. Mole, on the other hand, a 107.209. So that mistake from Mole, and that mistake as well at the first corner, means he's going to start losing touch now with Daniel Stevens.
According to this, there was a pit stop in 1937 by Mercedes.
Oh, really?
Because, you'll love this, because Adolf Hitler pumped money into the German racing teams, which brought a revolution in pit stop technology.
Righto.
And they did it in 33 seconds.
Wow, absolutely blinding pace. I mean, considering the technology of the day, that's probably really good. Oh, there we go, into the 106.2s for Harold Stadler. He is not looking back in the lead of this. Cameron Dance can only respond with a 106.5. What about Will Leslie? 106.9. So Harold Stadler is incredibly comfortable in the lead right now. There's Dean Mole coming out onto the front stretch, gaining half a second on Daniel Stevens on this lap. It was a 102.7 from Daniel, and he went for a little bit of a slide in turn one himself, going very wide in turn one as Ilya Sharmov to let these guys go. And Jonathan Bain lifts off to let Dean Mole go as well. So now there's no one in between Mole and Stevens. The battle can resume anew. I'm feeling really lonely up here, Ryan.
You know that say, you know how they often say less is more, and in commentary you don't say anything unless you've got something to add to the broadcast. Well, I can keep repeating the gap between them.
If you want.
Or I can keep hunting down random trivia facts for you.
Yeah, and confirming with me to see if they're true.
I don't know. I abide by this race needed something more than just 108 laps flat out.
Oh, this is the way it is. The drivers all have to deal with it out there the same. The gap is now down to 2 seconds between Stevens and Mole. Stevens had another little adventure at the carousel, bit of a double slide, so that's meant Mole has been able to eke out the gap once more. 107.8 from Stevens and 106.9 from Dean Mole.
So,
another slide for Stevens. It's happening again at the same point every lap. Sorry, Ryan, but Mr. Stevens is starting to feel the pressure, I think. Those long corners getting the better of his car. Meanwhile, here is a proper battle between Gavin Barber and Martin Houston for 13th place.
Yeah, so Martin Houston was actually 7/10 slower on the last lap, so that might suggest that Barber's just passed him. And the pace up through the S's would probably say the same.
Oh, yeah.
When Mole gets to Stevens, does he be patient or does he try and get bumped straight away? Because he's not that out of the equation if Leslie starts to slip up a bit. There's so long still to run.
Yeah, this is true. But
What times? A 6.9. What's Leslie doing? A 6.9. Yeah, okay, move it on.
yeah, I think Leslie is able to keep those lap times in a range where he's all right in third, but if Mole jets up to the back of Stevens, and well, obviously Stevens making a couple of mistakes on every other lap and running a little bit slower, Mole would just end up losing time. So if I were Mole, I'd try and get by quick sharp, and once I am by Stevens, I focus on extending the gap over the final half of the race.
Up at the front? How did that happen? Up at the front. It became 6 seconds. Stephen Williams just had a crash at the carousel, by the way, right in front of our race leader.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Looks like a fairly hefty amount of damage on that machine. Can barely keep it straight. Looks like he just went in too hard and smacked the tyre barrier, something chronic. Quick replay thanks to our mates at Modem. So Williams out of the S's, and you'll see once he gets up to the braking zone, it's almost like the pedal goes through to the floor. The car just keeps going straight, straight, straight. There was an attempt to turn it in, but not much Williams could do. So for him, in the Sportsman Championship, it's not going to be a good result for Stephen. He's still very slow as we stay on the replay. Something's happened here in the vicinity of Jonathan Bean. It looks like Jake Fox got out of the throttle here and letting cars go. What about Jonathan Bean on the other hand? Does he make it through? Yes, he does. So it was a change of position between those guys.
Williams is still limping to the lane, by the way. Slowly, slowly.
Yeah.
There we go. I think he might have had another crash in the chute between the carousel and turn 6. I heard some suspicious sounding noises while it was alt-tabbed. So, yeah, Cameron Dance is now 6.9 seconds back, and Stadler's really just put that battle to bed, hasn't he?
Yeah, with that lap that you saw up in the top right just before, 106.0 now is the fastest lap of the race, thanks to Harold Stadler. And I mean, he seems to just really enjoy these kinds of machines. Something about these low grip cars that brings out the best in Harold Stadler. The gap now 2.8 between Stevens and Mole, down to 2.6 again. It's just fluctuating a bit lap on lap because, you know, these guys can make a little mistake in the middle of the lap and it can just build and build and build until you've lost nearly half a second. Stevens' last lap was still in the 106s, but Mole's last lap a 107.1.
A big disparity in lap times there, isn't it? So, in terms of who we've still got left running in this race, Williams is down on pit road, and I feel like he might have already used his spare car because he's still stationary in his pit box. Ilya Shamov has managed to keep going. He's 14 laps down, but Matthew Cloet, Phil Otto, Pierre Cousin, and Fraser Ross are all retirements from this one. Sorry, no, Phil Otto's still going. He's 21 laps down. So he's just overtaken Matthew Cloet with that.
All right. That's Filotto now up into 19th place, and
Sticking with it.
yeah, and good job too, because it is a long race. If there's another couple of retirements before the end of this one, then he can make up that gap and gain a couple extra positions otherwise as well. So, back on board with Dean Moll, a clear track ahead of him. The gap to Daniel Stevens still hovering around 2.5 seconds. So now Moll just needs to focus on hitting his marks right every corner, every lap, and hoping that that Stevens can make a couple more mistakes, bring him up to a potential top 4. Moll's last round at Lucas Oil Raceway in the Silver Crown did very well on that one, finishing on the podium in the final race of the night. So if he can get a top 4, or even if he stays in the top 5, it's going to be another good round for him.
Yeah, certainly will. That Legends Championship, Harold Stadler looking really strong, isn't he, as well?
Yeah.
8 seconds clear now. So while he keeps doing purple after purple, Dance has just not really got that last little bit, does he? Despite being on the pole, it would seem that over the course of the race, he's starting to fade away. And maybe that's just fatigue setting in. He can't keep his mind as focused as he would maybe want. That's how the Legends Championship looks heading into today, and you can see, based off that, how much Stevens will be on the back foot, finishing 4th, while Sadler wins, maybe.
Yeah, that's going to be another big disparity of points between them, and with only a few rounds to go after this one, Stevens is going to hope that that Stadler retires or finishes down the order while he potentially gets a top 5, but it's going to be close for the over 50s in this championship. So looking at the timing screen, looks like there's no proper battles out on track at the moment. It's all just gaps, all just managing gaps, managing your own car, managing your lap times. And this is where I think the skill set required for this car really comes to the fore, because we've been talking about fatigue. We've talked about the long race length. We talked about the fact that there's no pit stops. In a car that's as difficult to drive as this, you know, it's light, it's on treaded tires, it's got 400 horsepower, weighs only about 500 kilos. One single mistake can set you massively on the back foot, and it's really difficult to keep up the consistency as well through corners like this. To be right on board with Luke Critchley, who's been having a bit of a difficult time with this Lotus 49. Driving this thing fast, you are on the edge the whole time. You have to slide the car through the turns in order to be quick in these things. They run old bias ply tires, which generate the best grip when they are sliding a little bit more than modern radial tires.
Hey, it was 1 hour, 59 minutes and 20 seconds, the winning time for Jackie Stewart in 68, by the way.
Oh, well, if he can do it in under 2 hours, we can too.
Their track was 100 meters shorter.
This is true, but we can see that we're roughly on pace. Hopefully we can get it under 2 hours and see out the full race distance. But
well, the weather, temperatures reached a maximum of 10 degrees.
Oh!
Wow.
And that was what time of the year? That would have been around
October 6th.
Yeah, right, okay, that makes sense. Upstate New York in October. Very different from what we're seeing here at the moment with a 21-degree air temperature, 32-degree track temperature. It's still falling. Remember last time we checked in on that, it was 35 degrees. So the car's getting faster, the track is getting faster. I mean, obviously, they back in the day, they did not have access to all the data that we do now. couldn't make as accurate determinations of the track temperature, but they
will
would have
say-
still known that it played a part.
Our attrition rate is looking to be a lot better. Only 6 cars finished that race,
Wow.
covered by 5 laps. Bruce McLaren, the car 5 laps down. And then, well, they had 2 non-starters. 5 people retired because of their engine. 1 for transmission, 1 for clutch, that was Andretti. 2 were just not classified, I've got no idea why. Apparently only 1 for an accident.
Well, that's a pretty good record, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, the quip I made earlier about reliability, not having the engines covered, certainly showing its head in the standings from back here.
Saw a lot of smoke there. That's a problem for a car down at the first turn. Jake Fox, okay, down in P12, having a bit of a wayward moment on entry and a couple of technical issues to boot. But thank you very much for the stats, Ryan. Certainly helping us to gain a deeper understanding of what's going on here. What happened to Jake Fox? Just catching the grass in the braking zone right across the runoff area in turn 1. And good avoiding action once again by the 2 cars coming through, one of which was Luke Critchley. We'll see what happened from on board his perspective. This was for position, by the way. Luke Critchley was closing in on Jake Fox before this happened. Then there was the mistake, and Critchley just delaying the turn in a little bit to get on by. And he's back up now into position 11. I'm hearing also that Dwayne Burns dropped 4 seconds on Dean Moll on the last lap, so there's something going wrong for the Avatar Auto Racing number 19. I'm going to go back and check to see if anything happened to him. 7 seconds over the last 4 or 5 laps, but I can't see any big incident for Dwayne Burns. I do see him passing a couple of lapped cars, so that might have had something to do with it.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there.
Well, Daniel Stevens and Dean Moll got no cars between them meanwhile. Stevens down into the first corner, keeping it as smooth as he can. But a 106.6 for Daniel, another 106.6 for Dean Moll. So matching each other nicely for lap times. It's going to be an interesting top 4 battle in these last 40 or so laps. As Moll... oh, sorry, that's Jonathan Bean there. Making his way past Martin Houston. Of course, that's not for position. They're a couple of laps apart.
I think I've said this before, old school gear on old school cars on iRacing. The only thing that's missing is, over the course of the race, while they're wearing goggles, they are.
They are.
Never mind, it wouldn't matter. If we had the drivers taking off their helmets and masks after the race, you would expect them to be covered in absolute black grease and stuff, as you saw images from drivers back in the day. Because obviously, back then they're so exposed, aren't they? Sitting in the cockpit. They're more tucked away nowadays, aren't they?
Yeah, much more tucked away.
Plus, they actually have a full face helmet.
Yeah, they don't have any part of their skin exposed to the elements, unlike these guys. And, you know, you look at a car like this and you see that the roll hoop doesn't even come up past the driver's helmet. So the helmet of the driver is the top of the car, which means when these things flipped, it was a bit of a 50-50 situation, let's just say.
So, lap 76, it's a 9-second advantage for Harold Stadler, 25 seconds to Leslie, 35 to Stevens. Watkins still got Mole closing, but not really by as much as Mole would have wanted. Burns is 5 seconds away from Sheridan, but I don't think that one's coming down anytime soon. I think by the end of this, we might have 5 cars on the lead lap. Because I think Burns and Sheridan might get caught.
Stephen Williams back out on track, so good to see. Oh, Phil Otto's back in the pits though. So we've seen a bit of jostling there at the back of the field. Good to see that Stephen Williams is back out on track. He does have quite the gap to Bradley Matheson though. It's somewhere in the vicinity of 11 laps between the two of them. So a lot of time for Stephen Williams to make up, but at the very least, he's going to get an advantage in his battle with Ilya Shamov. Shamov 2 laps down on Williams and down in the pits as well. So Mr. Williams going to be on for a Class 5 finish if he keeps this going. But Phil Otto with a much cleaner looking car now. I remember looking at it further towards the start and seeing the inner workings of the nose bared to the world, but now he's got some bodywork back on that thing. We'll see what kind of times he can put down. There's Bradley Matheson, the car up ahead of Williams for position, just letting them go at the first turn. Our leader, Harold Stadler, just behind him, and there is the visual gap to Cameron Dance. Stadler has 100%ed just about every lap here, and Dance just not able to respond. Will Leslie, the championship leader, in position number 3. Of course, if he keeps this up, he's going to finish behind Dance in this race, but that's just going to mean that the points gap between them will be reduced. There won't be any change of position between them. Leslie will still be on top if the race finishes as it is now. Daniel Stevens up there in P4, but the gap to Dean Mole behind is continuing to wibble and wobble. Completing the top 5, those guys, with Dwayne Burns in position 6, and behind him, Alexander Sheridan, not that far between the two of them. Those are the last cars on the lead lap. Next car behind them is Shane Bowen in position 8, just coming up to the last corner. He's the first car a lap down. The battle between himself and Wayne Taylor is looking like it's going to heat up, because right there is Taylor, only 1 and a bit seconds. We'll see what happens between the two of them.
Yeah, could certainly close up as we get down towards the last 15 or so laps. 29, 30 to go at the moment. Just insert Jaws music here.
Yeah. Bowen and Taylor, you see already there's been 3 or 4 tenths taken out of Bowen by Taylor, so Wayne's on a bit of a charge here. Bowen, of course, having a couple of spins and offs of his own. But Bowen's fastest lap is not that bad, a 106.866. Wayne Taylor's fastest lap is 2 tenths quicker, so Taylor can string a lap together. He's certainly faster than Bowen, but there's an awful lot of other elements that come into play in a race situation. The track, the weather, other cars around you. It looks like the gap is just decreasing ever so slightly lap to lap between those two.
No reliability issues in this one. Not for the cars, but potentially at home hardware. You would imagine they'd be able to withstand a couple hours, designed to last so many more than that. But those engine issues and suspension and clutch dramas won't be a factor as we get closer to the end, like it was in real life. Now, what I've noticed in these cars is a shadow that haunts them around the racetrack. I can see it most down the main straight, but it sits off to the right of the car by about a metre down the main straight. Now it's on the left-hand side of the car.
Yeah, just see the little speck there. I think that might be the driver's helmet. Wrong side,
Jay,
Jay.
that's the sun.
Wrong side, Jay.
Jay,
Okay, so the sun
Jay's
is
like-
coming from that direction. He's showing
That's the
us.
sun. None of us have seen it in the last 7
Okay,
months.
and because he's gone around the corner, that shadow is now moved over to the other side of the car again. So you're going to have to
Physics,
change
Jay.
the camera again.
Look up, look up.
Not that one. Not that one, Jay. Look,
Look
up.
up.
Look up. There it is.
There it is.
There it is. Righto. Disappeared behind a tire. Nope, it's on the tire.
Is
Yeah,
this
I wonder
what a
what
cat
that is.
feels like when it's chasing light?
I think so. I've just got so much energy in me. Like, goodness me, I just want to jump around. Slap my paws on the screen.
I can't believe we spent over a minute.
And in debate with our director as well. That's oh my goodness. Okay, he says he was trying to work out what direction the sun was coming from to get the shadow right. Okay. Yeah, and now he can't unsee that shadow, and we can't unsee it. You can't unsee it. At least until iRacing patches it.
Everyone sign a petition. Fix the weird shadow on the Lotus 49. It's only been in the service for 20 years. Alright. Yep, still a big margin for Stadler.
Yeah, not much has changed there, has it?
No.
It's now over 10 seconds back to
Sheridan.
Cameron Dance.
Sheridan's about to go a lap down in the next 2 laps. 6.217, that's on by. Director J thought it was going to be a 5, but Director J was wrong. Again. And Gavin Barber's on pit road.
Oh dear.
Gavin was 3 laps down. What's happened to him?
Oh, big off there at the carousel and into the tyre barriers.
Looks like a really weird angle. Maybe he had some sort of failure at home. Because
Right.
that car looked like it was going more straight than right.
Well, we'll see the truth in the onboard in the wheel application. Coming up to the carousel he goes, onto the brakes. And I think there might have been a lock-up at the rear or something like that. Because it didn't look like he
strange.
braked late. He didn't brake late.
But it just suddenly carried a lot of speed.
Yeah. I mean, I could see that he was trying to turn the wheel, just load up the tyre and get it going, but no dice, apparently, from that car, so...
Broke the steering arm on it, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely shattered it. But Gavin Barber's going to be in there for a while. Ilya Sharmov is still in the pits with him. And of course, we've got the empty car of Fraser Ross sitting there forlorn in the pit box. For Wayne Taylor and Shane Bowen, though, the gap's stayed the same between them. It's actually extended out a little bit. Bowen's got a bit of his mojo back, gaining a couple of tenths on Wayne Taylor. Another problem for Martin Houston, with the front end missing from that one, and the car definitely didn't look like that last time we checked in with Martin. So let's see what went on with him here. Looks like another problem at the carousel. Let's see what happened. Onto the brakes, over the crest. Yeah, the car just went airborne and locked the wheels. And at that point, you're just going straight.
Whoever would have thought carousels could be so dangerous?
I know, right? A fast descending right-hand corner? What could be dangerous about that?
A 6.5 there from Cameron Dance. He's just not got that pace, has he?
No.
Although Southern at a 6.79, so he was quicker than him for a lap.
Yeah, but a gap's a gap, and that's where it stays as Houston brings it into the pits. Some heavy damage to that machine. but he has the spare car, so he's able to go straight back out again.
A gap's a gap. That's the sort of attitude and the reason why you never won a championship race.
Excuse me, I have won a championship. I've won 2.
Max Bantz doesn't count.
I haven't won a Max Bantz. I've never competed in a Max Bantz. I organise it, mate.
Oh. That explains a lot.
Indeed it does. Sperry's the one that comes up with all the ideas. I just say yes to them.
Sounds like a solid democracy.
It is.
So come on, what championships have you won?
Oh, well, I have won the Australian Endurance Championship in the LMP2. I've won an LMP2 championship on R Factor, and I also won my first iRacing league in the Mustang, but I'm not going to talk too much about that because the standard of competition wasn't hugely high.
Were you racing against people called Jay?
No. This was before Jay.
Is it before Jay?
Yes. It was the year 1 BJ when I started on iRacing. Oh my god. No. Jay is saying retract that comment. My answer is no. No, no, no. We're gonna. Jay says we're gonna see if people are actually listening to the commentary now. Yep, you are. Wake up, everyone. Blooper reel, it is.
Oh my god, where's the quote wall?
Oh Christ. Okay, our director's lost it, which means we're probably just going to stay on this same camera angle for the rest of the broadcast now. Mr. Taylor chasing Mr. Bowen up through the S's once again. Gap under a second now between these guys, so either Bowen's made a mistake or Taylor has gotten a great deal of pace out of that thing. Going to check the lap times. 106.9 for Bowen, 107.1 for Taylor, so okay, obviously happened a lap or so before this point.
Yeah.
Catching your breath, Ryan. Trying to get some professionalism back into the commentary box.
Something like that. Yeah, so Wayne Taylor, definitely looking like he could get by Shane Bowen here. Oh, no, Stevens had a crash.
Stephen Williams, oh no, up at the carousel.
That was the long con in that crash. He was drifting along the fence and then he grabbed it.
All right, we'll see Ryan's extended pleading in this replay from Stephen Williams. Over the crest he goes, a little bit of a lock up, just goes on and on and on and on and on and on and on. Oh, he almost got out of it. Almost. Oh, nearly sent over the barrier as well for good measure. And Stephen is not having a great time in this race. He's slow again out on circuit, having to let cars go as he makes his way back to the pits. But this Lotus 49, when it bites, it takes your arm off.
So he's going to have to limp back to pit lane again. He will definitely not have a spare car up his sleeve anymore. Here we go. Shane Bowen wide through the last corner. Wayne Taylor up the inside. Gets the power down nice and smoothly, and Bowen lets him go across the length of the main straight. And that is Wayne Taylor up into 8th place. First car a lap down.
We'll see what kind of reaction Shane Bowen has to this, because he's well and truly in the draft range down the back stretch out of the S's. Or Taylor running a bit wide in the left-hander. That's given the advantage back to Bowen. So out of the S's they come. Is Taylor going to go defensive? No, he's not. On the inside is Shane Bowen, but lifting off. Getting out of the throttle. Obviously not enough time until they get to the entry to the carousel. But I get the feeling this battle's going to continue for at least a lap, because have a look at the exit from Bowen here. Taylor stays in the middle of the circuit to cover him off. wants to keep this new 8th place he has assumed. Nice and smooth into the final corner as well. So it looks like Bowen's throttle application is where he has the advantage, but the straights aren't really long enough for him to take advantage. Either that, or he needs to increase the gap to Taylor so he can get a slingshot.
Yeah. What an insight. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think my brain is
My thoughts are in agreement.
my brain has become puzzled. It has turned into your democratic opinion with Jake Sperry on Max Vance. Disagree. So, Bowen's definitely sticking with him here. Certainly the first lap or two he's had behind him. So if Taylor makes a mistake, Bowen's going to be right there to challenge and take away P8 once more. Now, if I go find our top 10 standings for our various seasons, there's not much either of these guys are playing for. Wayne Taylor's a distant third in the Legends, quite comfortably ahead of John King. And Shane Bowen is 8th in pro standings. He was a point behind O'Leary coming in. He's definitely got that wrapped up because O'Leary's not in here. And he's 30 points behind Dean Moll. But Dean Moll's ahead of him on the racetrack, so there's not much of a championship incentive in this battle.
No, but there's plenty of incentive to have fun down the straight. There's pride as well, absolutely. Pride is big, especially when you're racing in these retro machines. A bit harder into the carousel for Shane Bowen, and he leaves it to the very end to bring it into the inside. Have a look at the throttle application again, up into the next gear, and he has the advantage over Taylor again down the straight, but
lifts off.
Yeah, getting up alongside into this penultimate corner, it is tempting, and we have seen passes being made there, but it's definitely not easy. Much better off waiting for another opportunity at a heavier braking zone like this one down here at turn 1, or the one into the carousel.
I like watching the suspension work on these cars from the shoulder. It's pretty cool.
Oh yeah.
Moving up and down.
Oh, no!
No!
Whoa!
No!
Okay, that came out of nowhere.
Wayne Taylor. That is.
Righto.
That's an incident that's happened a couple times in NASCAR. There, where you end up on the grass, but normally it's exiting the corner that results in hitting the wall there. Not an issue in a straight line into the grass.
So, Bowen gets his position back, and this is how it happens. So Taylor exits the corner, but then gets back onto the grass on the turn-in point and straight into the wall. That was strange. That was strange. I don't know if that had something to do with a hardware glitch or something like that, but there's definitely no...
Yes, his steering wheel locked. Because if you watch the cockpit, you see that snap back to the right.
Yep.
His wheel had locked left.
Wow.
Or rather, it wasn't getting an input.
Yeah, righto. So
hardware
problems. Hardware problems for Wayne Taylor.
Stopped receiving an input, and Armco Fence was ready with open arms.
Well, it's a big shame for Wayne, but to my knowledge, he has not taken his spare car yet. So once the tow time is over, he should be able to get straight back out onto the circuit. Only problem is he's probably going to be fighting with the likes of Jonathan Bean, Luke Critchley, Jake Fox, those kinds of drivers. Which is a big shame for Wayne after getting up there into 7th position. Luke Critchley there, back into the 10th position. And it's going to be a change between him and Wayne Taylor there as a result. Dwayne Burns, though, starting to come under a little pressure from Alexander Sheridan. The gap's under 3 seconds between those two guys. 107.2 from Dwayne Burns. Alexander Sheridan a 106.8, and Mr. Burns is about to get himself passed by Harold Stadler, our race leader. So both of these guys now going to go a lap down, but still fighting for position. Got a bit of extra fun here because Martin Houston cruising along in the number 88. They have to divert to go around him, but no harm, no foul as Houston lifts off to let them go.
So, where are we? Looking at Ryan Burns, yeah, of course. I couldn't see him on the leaderboard for some reason. I couldn't see him on the leaderboard for some reason. I looked up, I was like, where is he?
Oh, uh-oh.
Hello, John King.
Down at the carousel in another car with trouble too.
Chamov, you saw that telltale smoke, wouldn't you? In the foreground of our shot. Probably spun trying to avoid John King, I would guess. Whether that or they've come into blows down at that corner.
I see what's happened. It was contact with Cameron Dance.
Damn it, Cameron. Oh, Cameron's now under pressure from Leslie.
Yeah.
31 back he is.
Yeah, Dance and King made contact down here. Come and have a
he's
look.
out.
Dance is now in the pits and out. So this is what happened. John King comes on in. Cameron Dance suffers an issue in front of him and goes wide. He's going to come back onto the track, but King's recovering from a slide himself. They make contact, and both of them get straight to the wall.
So that smoke was actually...
That was Cameron.
Yeah, Dance's engine. Now, how did Shamov become involved in this?
I think Shamov might have been an innocent bystander.
Did he have his own incident earlier in the corner and just happened to be at the same time?
I think... maybe, I'm not
that
sure.
That entry for Dance was bizarre, and it started all of that. So that gives up second place, and Harold Stadler can afford to let his kids drive, probably.
Yeah, most likely. Harold Stadler now with 35-second lead over Will Leslie. Cameron is...
out of his first car into his spare car.
Yeah, and into 5th place, and he's going to start piling the pressure on Dean Mole now. We'll see if Cam can make his way back into a top 5 position before the end of this one. But he's rapidly running out of time. They're only going to have 12 laps to go when they cross the line next.
What's left on our Majors Series calendar then? Because we are at the closing point of the season, and next up we will be exchanging a retro combo for a iconic combo, the Bathurst 500. Well, Bathurst in the supercar, 500 miles, because no one wants to do 161 laps by themselves. So 81 laps it'll be, and then we finish off the season at Auto Club for the California 500 in the IndyCar, 250 laps around there. That'll be a pretty wild event, because that'll be wide open in those cars.
Absolutely. And the racing at Auto Club in iRacing has always turned it up. Really looking forward to that final round of the season. So only 2 rounds to go. Hello indeed. Goodness me, that's Ilya Shamov. Oh, he was trying to let Cam go, but Cam wanted to go up the inside into the last corner. That's an extra second or so, I think, lost for Cameron Dance, but there's not much that can be done in that section of the track. It's only a short bit of straight and not much time to assess where you're going to be. So that means then the gap now back out over 3 seconds between Dean Mole and Cameron Dance. And in terms of Mole and Stevens, I think that battle is dead, because Daniel Stevens is now lapping in the low 106s. He's gotten something out of that car, set his fastest lap on lap 93 a 106.299, and Stevens' last lap 106.36. Dean Mole, meanwhile, he seems to be continuing to hover in the high 106s, low 107s. But he has a bit more breathing room versus Dance now. And with, now it's going to be 11 laps to go for these guys. He might just have the gap he needs.
I think Cameron Dance will be looking pretty good at 4th there, because Well, do they get given fresh tyres with their spare car?
I would presume they do. But I'm not sure, actually. I think if it's a fast repair, then you'll only get the damage repaired and not get the tyres checked. But new tyres I don't think are worth that much in this car, considering how long they last.
Might just give a bit more comfort in the car. A little bit of extra grip, potentially. Even if it doesn't translate to extra speed, necessarily. That's a car.
Yes, it is indeed.
Jake Fox.
Very slow. And he's going to bring that thing straight into the pits. I wonder what happened to him.
Spun. Okay, it didn't happen where I thought it did. It happened.
Yeah. No. Oh, hello. Yeah, it was halfway down the straight. What on earth? It looks like that might have been a bit of oversteer on the exit of the carousel, translated into a bit of a tank slapper for Jake Fox. Let's have a look at the wheel. So he comes out through the dip. Car unloads a little bit. Yes, ever so slight slide, and then from one wall into the other.
Yeah, that's end of the race. You don't make that mistake early on, but you're just in a zone of comfort at this point, and you don't pick up on those little moments until it's too late.
Yeah, there's the incident. One wall, two wall, and stop. A little bit of avoiding action being taken there by another kinetic machine. Or it might have been Burns or Bowen, I'm not quite sure. But Mole and Dance coming back together now. Cameron is on it in terms of lap time. He's made up that entire second in just a lap or so. D-Mole could be under threat here for fourth once again.
1.7 seconds, the gap for the last few cars on the lead lap, 50 seconds away from Stadler. Pretty safe to say it will be 5 cars on the lead lap, barring an issue for one of these 5. Gantz looks to have sorted out his sliding through the carousel issue that he was having through the early stage of the race.
Yeah, he does. It's looking a lot smoother now through that section of the course. Wayne Taylor's going to let him go down on the straight and dives it into the final corner, does Dean Mole just up ahead. And we'll compare lap times once more. See what these guys are doing. Mole across the line. It's going to be a 107.0 with a 106.3 for Cameron Dance. I mean, there's really no comparison.
Damn, I thought we are on board with Dance. The avatar looks like Cameron Dance. Go back.
Yeah. Oh, it does. It does look like Cam. Oh my goodness.
There's Dean Moles.
Yeah. I don't know if that's what Dean Mole looks like. Daniel Stevens. Well, doesn't have big enough arms. Probably missing a little bit of stubble as well. It's awesome that you can actually change your driver avatar in iRacing now. There's no longer the one-size-fits-all default model. You can choose from a few. It allows you to better represent yourself in the virtual racing world.
You know that one really ugly avatar that's in there? Because they actually used a few real-life people as models. Well, that one's Jay.
Oh.
Yeah, the ugly one,
eh? Yeah, okay. Nice little iRacing tidbit there. Under a second now between Mole and Dance.
Look at the steering input across the top of the S's. That can't be good for the tyres.
There's got how many laps to go and the tyres last the full 108? It doesn't mean a thing.
True. Overheat them potentially. He's already got damage on his nose again.
Well, he's pushing. I think that might be damage actually probably carried over, because we do know that the fast repair doesn't always repair everything. It
What?
might have just... Well, yeah, it doesn't. Sometimes there's a couple of things that are left slightly damaged, like bodywork and things that are just incidental to the car.
You've just ruined my life.
You're welcome. 6 laps to go for these guys. And Dance is pressuring Mole hard once again. Beautiful line through the S's. He tucks it in early. Gets back on the throttle again over the rise. Just avoiding the wall on the exit, and now well and truly in the draft. So does Mole have any response for this? Is he going to go defensive? Cam's going to have a look up the inside. He's going to stick it in there. Mole gives him the room. Bit of an early turn in there for Dance and runs wide in the middle of the corner. Slight slide. That's going to keep him behind Mole just for now. But it's looking like this move is a matter of when, not if. Up the inside again for Dance. Has another look at Mole. Mole turns in late again, gives him the room, but Dance doesn't take it. Oh, and a little bit wide for Mole on the entry into the final corner. This could translate into a move into turn 1 for Dance. He does have the gain. They're going to be side by side almost across the line. Into the braking zone for turn 1 they go. And this could be for third. Can D-Mole keep the momentum up around the outside? No, he cannot. Cameron Dance stabs on the throttle and retakes 4th position.
6 seconds away. 8 seconds away from 3rd place, Daniel Stevens. He won't get there with 4.5 laps left to go. There is Harold Stadler up at the front of the field, 36-second advantage over Will Leslie. And his car seemed to come alive right about lap 50 onwards.
That it did, and I think this is one of the best drives I've ever seen from Harold Stadler. He doesn't have a single chip on that car. Nothing wrong with it, no contact, nothing. And he's just kept it going really nicely in the last half of this race, setting some fantastic lap times. And keeping it well away from the edges of the track as well, so you can tell there's probably a little bit more left in the pace of that machine, but he's so far ahead that he doesn't need to take advantage. And all for the better, I think, too, because at this stage of the race, with a lead of over half a minute, you just want to be able to cruise home.
At what point does a 36-second margin become comfortable?
Well, how long is a piece of string? Is there ever such a thing as a comfortable margin in this car, our director says. I don't really have an answer for that question.
A piece of string is the distance between one end and the other end.
Oh, how informative. Thank you very much, Ryan. That was a genuine question from me, and now I know the answer. I can retire from sim commentary now. See ya. I'm not going to say no, Jay. Don't tell me what to do. Jay says no, and what Jay says goes, apparently. So I'm still here. I now have a new fount of knowledge in my head. Now that I know the length of a piece of string, it is Galaxy Brain time. 2 laps to go for our leader, Harold Stadler. The gap is now 37 seconds to Will Leslie. Okay, Jay's just fed us a piece of information, Ryan. Do you want to relate that?
Nope.
Okay, I will then. Apparently, on Stadler's current pace, the race time is going to be 2 hours and 2 seconds. So, we are actually pretty much on track for keeping it within the time limit.
Depends if Stadler wants to drive a second slower.
Well,
Quicker.
Yeah, I was going to say a second slower. No, that's not going to work. But he would need to do a 205 or a 105 rather, in order to gain the respect of us here at SimSpeed, but it's the final lap. Can Harold Stadler gain on the magnificent pace he's been showing all throughout this race and give us a 1 minute 5 second lap on the final lap? I don't know if that's at the forefront of his mind at the moment. It's just a case of completing these final 4 kilometers of the circuit, and he'll be away with a win. This is going to massively help him in the Legends Championship battle with Daniel Stevens, but I don't think Stevens is going to be unhappy with how this race has gone for him. Thanks to Cameron Dance's incident, he now sits in 3rd. So it's going to be a double podium for the top 2 in our Legends Championship standings. And Will Leslie has done very well too to hold on for 2nd place. He did fall off Dance and Stadler towards the start, but kept it going, and he's going to get a podium for his troubles. But for Harold Stadler, around the final corner he goes. The Legends Championship leader is going to take victory here at Watkins Glen in the Lotus 49. A brilliant measured drive from Harold. He showed his pace in qualifying, and once we got past the lap 50 point, there was no looking back for him. Supreme.
Great drive indeed, and a very well-deserved victory for him. We have to wait a while for 2nd place to come across the line. Will Leslie. 2 hours and 6 seconds, the official race time. There's Will Leslie about to come across the line. Through the final corner, it's going to be P2 for Leslie, right where he started.
And this is going to help him out in his fight with Cameron Dance for the Pro Championship. Daniel Stevens completes the podium. Excellent drive. And Cameron Dance, well, it could have been a P2 for him, but were it not for mistakes and the incident earlier on, he has to settle for 4th. And Dean Mole completing the top 5, which he should surely be happy with.
Everyone else has crossed the line then. There's your full results at the end of 108 laps at Watkins Glen.
Yeah, goodness me. And have a look at that winning margin. 37.5 seconds from Harold Stadler to Will Leslie, with Stevens, Dance and Mole completing the top 5. And they were the last cars on the lead lap. Burns and Sheridan 6th and 7th, with Bowen, Ben and Critchley rounding out the top 10. Luke Critchley doing very well despite his multiple incidents through the race to come home for 10th after starting 15th.
Wayne Taylor picks up 11th ahead of Jake Fox in 12th, Martin Houston 13th. Bradley Matherton 14th and Kevin Barber 15th, 12 laps down. John King 16th, Phil Otto, Ilya Shamov, Stephen Williams, Matthew Clough at your top 20.
And the last 2 cars were Pierre Cousin and Fraser Ross, both retiring from this one. Fraser Ross, unfortunately, not even able to make it into the first 5 laps after qualifying in the top 10. Well, there we go. That is that for the race, but driver interviews are coming up right now. First off is our 3rd place man, Daniel Stevens. G'day, Dan, and congratulations on the podium. Cameron Dance's incident further up ahead in the dying laps was what helped you out with that one, but still, running in the middle of the top 10 for a lot of the race, it was a good drive.
Yeah, I was a bit surprised when I saw Cam in the pits when I drove past, and I actually asked the boys, what had happened, but they couldn't tell me. So I figured obviously either fuel or an incident. But in the beginning of the race, Will Leslie and the other 2 guys, they were we're all neck and neck, and I thought, hang on, I'm gonna just hold back here just for a second, something's going to happen. But it didn't happen, and I just lost the draft and just did my own race after that.
That you did, and it was almost a battle between yourself and Dean Mole in the 3rd quarter or around that time, but he just fell off the back of you once again. These cars, incredibly hard to keep up consistent pace, especially around a track like this.
They are very, very unpredictable. Like, you can do a perfect lap, and then the next lap is nowhere near what you just did before. Your braking points sometimes change, and the car just handles so different. Crazy car, but absolutely love it, eh?
Yeah, well, we love it too. It's a great car to watch going around a circuit like this. But of course, you fight with Harold Stadler in the Legends Championship. You're still going to be second in that that title fight, but this is a great points haul. It keeps the gap from extending a bit too far to Harold.
Yeah, I had a bit of two last rounds, a bit shocking for me in the old points wise, but I'm thoroughly enjoying this battle between me and Harold A. It's been something to look forward to every round.
And we'll see how it turns out in the last couple of rounds of this season. But before we let you go, Daniel, anyone that you'd like to thank from your position, who gets it done for you?
Yeah, mate. So we've got WP Concretine, Snap-on Tools, Blacktown, Aussie Signs and Designs, Andrews Crane Hire, Virtual Car Art, Little Techers Boutique, Vessel Racing Team, Gary Motorsports, and HPX Industries.
MF Racing's Daniel Stevens, third place here at Watkins Glen. Next driver we're going to interview, Ryan, is our second place man, Will Leslie, who had a bit of a quiet one apart from the start. You stood by from him.
Yeah, Will Leslie, good job. P2 at the end of that one, where you started. Long way off the lead, though. But you did pick up a bit of damage pretty early on in that one.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Pretty good result. I don't know what happened to Cam there at the end. I think he tried to, by the looks of it, just select the wrong gear and blew his engine. So good gain in the championship there. But yeah, pretty uneventful race. I think the first 25 laps, so I was hanging with Harold and Cam pretty well. Tried some pretty ballsy moves. I think down to turn one, down to the bowl, and some of them, well, one of them came off, and then yeah, it just all sort of was a little bit of a cluster at the end of that.
So that damage, do you know where you picked it up? And you reckon it had much of an effect on your pace in the end?
I reckon it was from turn one. I think Cam and I had a bit of a side to side, but with net code and how iRacing works, it could have just damaged the nose. I think maybe a tenth. I was losing about a tenth a lap to where I should have been. I don't think I would have had enough to keep up with Harold. He was in another postcode tonight, but maybe just enough to hang on with Cam. I know he was sort of around my pace in practice.
Hey, you finished ahead of Cam anyway, so there you go. Who do you want to thank for helping you get it done today?
Hey, first one, big shout out to you guys. Put on a terrific broadcast each week. I go back and watch it, and it's like looking at yourself in the mirror, I guess. I like to watch the broadcast. It's terrific. I want to thank Mike and the whole Majors crew, especially big shout out to the Majors Garage. That's a new initiative launched by them to distribute setups. So go check that out, guys. And of course, a big shout out to our fabulous painter Ray. We had some pretty cool looking cars, the kinetic cars this week, and big shout out to him. He puts in a lot of work and is a bit of an unsung hero of the team. And I hope you guys enjoy the paints. They're terrific.
For sure. There were some excellent paints all throughout that field, and the kinetic cars, as usual, shone up looking real schmick. That was Will Leslie, second place. Final driver interview of the night is going to be our race winner, Harold Stadler. G'day, Harold. Congratulations on the victory. My goodness, it was some incredible pace from you in the second half. Qualifying didn't quite go your way, but it seems like the race car was really good.
Hello, and thanks for the congrats. Actually, I was only 5 thousandths behind Cam with the quali. I don't know why I was third on the grid, but anyway, it looks like I didn't care. So the race was pretty good, and I had a pretty fast phase in the race where I could pull away from everyone, and that was more or less the key of the race.
So how much effort went into preparing these Fitzstye cars for this race? Because we know the Kinetic team are a real big powerhouse. They put in a huge amount of effort every single round and usually come out with the best setups in the series. But it looked like you and Cam really had an edge in the Lotus 49 here.
Yeah, this time we prepared we put much more time into preparation than usual, because that was we already thought that this round will be a good round for us for some reason. I mean, I'm pretty good in the Lotus 49 normally. I drive it to seldom. Sorry, my English is lost currently.
That's okay, Harold.
I drive it not enough during seasons or some, so I only drove it this year. But anyway, the race pace was pretty good, and we focused, at least I focused, on race pace only. The qualifying was kind of a goodie this time, so that's a bit surprising that it went so well. But yeah,
Yes,
it's about one week or a bit over a week of work this time we put in the setup.
Well, it certainly paid off for you with a dominant win over half a minute over Will Leslie. And with that win, it also means you slightly extend your points advantage over Daniel Stevens in the Legends Championship. Both of you on the podium, but it looks like that title fight is going to come down to the last couple of rounds.
Yeah, that's close all season with Daniel. And to be honest, that's my main goal this year or this season, to fight for this Legends Championship. I don't know. I might be catching Dwayne Burns for P3 now. I have no idea actually with the points. But there's also a fight for the overall podium going on with Daniel, Dwayne Burns, and me. So yeah, my main goal is the Legends Championship, but if I can get P3 in the overall championship, would be nice also.
Yes, indeed, and definitely look forward to seeing how that top three fight goes over the last couple rounds of this season. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Harold. Before we let you go, is there anyone that you would like to thank? Any shout-outs, any sponsors?
Yeah, of course, my teammates, especially Cam, for helping with the setup work and stuff, and our sponsors, Texans, Renvale, Demon Tweaks, Fight CRC. So thanks everyone.
And thank you, Harold Stadler, winner of the 1968 US Grand Prix at Watkins Glen, round 12 of the International Division of the Majors Series. Well, that brings to an end proceedings for tonight, Ryan. Next up, we go to Bathurst, the 500 in the Australian touring cars. I'm looking forward to that one. This race was a bit of an endurance one, but we really go into endurance mode when we go to Mount Panorama.
Yeah, that's going to be really fun, and I expect a big turnout for our international division at Bathurst. Can't wait.
Neither can I. We want to give a big shout out to Metaviva once again, the charity being supported by this round of the Majors Series, funding research into fighting metastatic breast cancer. A big congratulations to Harold Stadler, Will Leslie, and Daniel Stevens, your podium tonight. We'll see you here on the iRacing Esports Network in a couple of weeks' time when we go to the Bathurst 500. It's the International Majors Series. It's Reese Gardner, Ryan Jones, and Jay Kennedy on cameras. And it's bye for now, but not forever.
This is fantastic. This is GT racing right now. He's got traction. He's got rid of the outside. Both of them. Maloney. Oh, he's taking Anderson. Anderson's up to Oh my God. Oh. Big crash. Oh my goodness. Half the field's going to get rolled.
It's very close. These guys I want to make their way through the field very quickly. Oh, there we go. Oh no. That's massive. This is it. This is over. I can't believe this. Oh my God.
God, what?